Good evening. Council, this evening we are honored to hear from our county executive who will deliver his first annual State of the County address. Ladies and gentlemen, it's my pleasure to introduce Harford County Executive Bob Casserly.
Thank you, Mr. President. Good evening, Council President Vincenti and distinguished members of the County Council and everybody else in attendance or watching this evening. I want to first thank the council members for confirming my director, Rob McCord, and my cabinet members who are here this evening joining us in the audience. And I also look forward to your review and confirmation of my most recent appointments. Mr. Greg Green. Greg, you here somewhere? Greg Green, stand up, Greg. He's bringing Greg in as our Deputy Director of Information Communications and Technology, and also, thanks, Greg, and also Mr. Mike Bernicke. Mike, you're here somewhere. Mike's as new Deputy Director for Emergency Services. Thank you. It's my distinct honor to stand here before you all this evening as your county executive. You know, I grew up here. My family's been here for many generations, and every day I have the privilege of looking out the window of my county executive office out onto the field at Bel Air High School where I played sports quite a long time ago. And I just feel so blessed and honored by the opportunity to lead this great county. We can all be proud and confident in this county. It's blessed with a diverse and talented population. It's a strong public safety team, great schools, key location, and abundance of natural resources that make this such a wonderful place to call home. Harford's grown, but we still retain a respectable dose of the small town charm of a tight-knit community where neighbors care for each other. It's important that we persist in our efforts to both keep pace with the rapidly changing world, but also protecting what we cherish most about our way of life. Proverbs tells us that integrity of the upright guides them. Integrity is the guiding principle of my administration. Outside my office door is a quote from Mark Twain that says, "Always do right. This will gratify some people and astonish the rest." Doing the right thing doesn't always make me popular, doesn't always make everybody happy, but that's my job, and I'm going to continue to follow the letter of the Constitution, the Charter, laws, and the codes to the best of my ability. With your help, Rob McCord and I have been able to assemble a really great team of leaders over here to consistently deliver excellence in government and integrity. The team's been in place for just 2 months now, and I'm very pleased to report to all of you council members that we work very well together to analyze effectively and address the very many challenges and opportunities that our county has. I'd like to just, if you wouldn't mind giving them a hand for the work that they're doing. To facilitate cooperative leadership team, we expanded a county executive conference room to allow adequate room and space for all of my directors and all my deputy directors and other senior staff and visitors to appear and openly discuss in person our challenges and ideas. Oliver Wendell Holmes Sr. said that many ideas grow better when transplanted into another mind than the one where they sprang up. We now have a space to foster such a collaborative effort, and I'm proud that Mr. Holmes' quote hangs on the wall in that conference room. Well, I've been putting a lot of time and effort into building a leadership team. My administration's also been working hard to build an extended network of personal relationships that will be key to our long-term success. In my first week as county executive, I had the pleasure of visiting with most of our county employees to see where they work, what their conditions are, and I'm really proud of our workforce and the work they do for our citizens. From our talented computer and technology staff to our water and sewer workers out in the field, each of our dedicated employees contributes to the quality of life that we come to enjoy. I've also made it a priority to open doors between my administration and this council. We were happy to arrange for your visits in January to our primary county facilities, and my cabinet members have made a great effort to be open to your questions and responsive to the council questions. Moving forward, I will continue to be available to meet with you. We represent different branches of local government, but we all share the same goals. My administration has also been reaching out to our federal, state, and local partners because I know, and you know, that we work best when we work together. In January, I welcomed Senator Chris Van Hollen to our county, and in the coming months, I'll be meeting with more of our federal delegation in Washington. Governor Moore and I have had several discussions, and I spoke with him just yesterday at our mutual visit to Aberdeen Proving Ground. I'm working to build relationships with his new cabinet, and I've connected with my fellow county executives from around the state. Closer to home, I've enjoyed meeting with Major General Edmondson and his staff. He's the senior commander at Aberdeen Proving Ground. Our state's attorney Healy, Sheriff Gaylor and his staff, our judges, our CEO Elizabeth Wise of Upper Chesapeake Medical Center, who's sort of incognito back there in the back row. Welcome. Dr. Teresa Felder of Harford Community College, our public schools superintendent John Bolson, and members of the Board of Education, municipal leaders, and more. And my message to all these folks is, let's work together for the good of the citizens that we all serve. My number one job as county executive is keeping our county safe. The safety of our public is paramount, and I intend to make sure that our public safety teams have what they need to keep Harford County safe at most reasonable cost. I'll be a strong and reliable partner with Sheriff Gaylor and the 3 municipal police chiefs, our Maryland State Police, our fire and EMS, our volunteer fire companies. Within hours of taking my oath of office, I convened my entire cabinet up at the Department of Emergency Services Command Center for disaster preparedness response exercise. And we literally worked until the end of the day and my first day to improve public safety. One of my first executive actions I took was to establish the Emergency Services Advisory Board, and that was created to help me address immediate, serious challenges that we face in providing the level of emergency response that our citizens expect and deserve. To be quite blunt, our 911 response times are not where they should be. The advisory board provides me with advice on necessary changes to address the shortages in EMS volunteers, increased demands for services, and the rising costs that are the drivers of my concerns. I've directed our emergency services leaders and the rest of my staff to make resolution of these challenges our top priority. We are actively recruiting more 911 operators and have added 2 new deputy directors to the department. I also ordered the county staffed EMS medic units that were previously assigned to specific stations to float to stations as needed, not as a political decision, but as determined by the Director of Emergency Services. It was one of those very units that had been moved by the director to the Joppa Magnolia Fire Company that responded to Ice World for an incident in December 20th involving a young woman who had gone into cardiac arrest. I want to personally thank Harford County Senior Deputy Jeremy Mothershed and our paramedics Andrew Dixon and Justin Wolf, who responded and played key roles in saving that young woman's life. And I want to also give credit to the fast-acting staff and visitors at Ice World who successfully deployed the AD. And this device was essential to saving the young woman's life. And we're increasing those units in parks and rec facilities and businesses throughout the county. I want to publicly acknowledge and thank our Director of Emergency Services, Rick Ayers. Rick, you just raise your hand or stand up. Thank you, right back there. For his exceptional service over the recent months. During the COVID, the surge that we have undergone in COVID, flu, and RSV, we ended up with ambulances stockpiled at emergency rooms to try to process the people through. And that's the wait times were pretty damaging. Rick was able to work with Upper Chesapeake Medical Center and the various healthcare providers throughout the county to rearrange how they did operations, and we're back to normal. And I think that's awesome, Rick. Thank you for doing that. I want to also thank Sheriff Gaylor and his deputies and our municipal police officers for the difficult and dangerous work that they do every day in our county to keep us all safe. Harford County is very fortunate to have avoided the political antics that have undermined effective law enforcement in so many other communities. Thank you, gentlemen, over there. And ladies. And ladies. I didn't miss. Okay. Education is an area of special interest for all of us. My family and I attend Harford County Public Schools. Some of my extended family members are teachers. My grandchildren attend our public schools. One of them's here to visit with me this evening. My goal is to ensure that every generation graduates with a high-quality education. And towards that end, I'm very pleased to have sent to this council this past week the names of 3 highly qualified candidates to fill vacancies on the school board who are all passionate about public education and who also know how to effectively manage large budgets. I look forward to their consideration and confirmation by the council. Given that our public schools receive about half of the general revenue taxes that we collect, it's really vital that our Board of Education include members who are both passionate about high-quality education and equally skilled in fiscal management. I'm trying to manage spending, but it's really not possible for me to do that given that I only control half of the budget in this county. And I need skilled fiscal managers and partners on the Board of Education to help us work through that. Over the past 5 years, while student enrollment has been fairly flat, our county funding for the schools has increased about 36%. And a large number of folks in the board are now making, and administrative staff are making over $170,000 annually. That's not what these folks are making sitting over here. As a county executive, I don't have any control over the salaries of the board administrators. So it's critical that we have folks on the board who understand and who can be good stewards of the taxpayers' fund and make sure that funding goes to our teachers and students as our funding priority. As students graduate, they must have career choices that include both college and the skilled trades. I hear all the time from business leaders about their needs for skilled workers, for rewarding careers in the trades, and we also need them in the county government. To help grow our workforce and bring opportunities to high school and community college students, my administration will be launching an apprentice program within the county government that we hope will become a model for the state. Working with Harford County Public Schools and the community college, we'll offer jobs to students in our emergency operations center, our fleet maintenance facility, water treatment plant, and other county facilities to give students hands-on experience and a head start in their potential careers. Though not quite as exciting as public safety and education, transportation is one of the areas that impacts each one of us every day. Harford faces particular challenges in the fact that our road network is largely served by state highways that we don't control. Of the 234 traffic lights that you see on our roads many times a day, I think they're all in my commute, 93% are owned and managed by State Highway Administration. As a state senator, I worked hard to bring a multi-million-dollar dynamic traffic signaling system to Route 24 from Bel Air to 95, but we still have a lot of work to do. As we're all too well aware, the time we spend sitting in traffic is time lost in opportunities to be with the people that we love. In January, my senior staff and I met with our State Highway District engineer, and we established a quarterly meeting between my administration and State Highway leadership to better coordinate capital projects. Today was the very first such meeting. We're also creating a traffic division within our Department of Public Works to coordinate with State Highway Administration to help better manage traffic flows within the county. Just as our transportation challenges require careful attention, we have to also attend to our economic prosperity. That's why, with your help, council members, we separated the county's Department of Economic Development from the Department of Housing and Community Development to ensure that economic development receives the careful attention that it needs. We're in the process of developing and standing up an economic development strategic plan that we're going to focus on 5 key priorities. First, we're going to enhance our relationship with the defense community, including Aberdeen Proving Ground and the associated defense contractors, with the goal of developing well-paying jobs in Harford County. APG is our #1 employer, by the way. We have hired the former deputy to the senior commander at APG to lead that effort, and he'll be assisted by our most senior economic development staff person. Second, we're standing up a business navigator who'll be responsible for assisting new and expanding businesses to navigate through the state and county bureaucracies as they try to expand and stand up businesses. Third, we'll be working through our Agricultural Advisory Board to expand opportunities for our farmers, including the development of a local meat processing facility. Fourth, we're exploring opportunities to expand local tourism, especially in areas of sports, agriculture, arts, and entertainment. And finally, we're expanding efforts to attract quality manufacturers and other businesses that can offer well-paying jobs. I've also created a Southern County Task Force that's currently made up of members of my cabinet whose charge is to fully analyze and comprehensively address the important opportunities and challenges that are unique to the Route 40 community. The task force members are now engaged in gathering information. Once the task force is in operation, it will be expanded to merge with the County Council President's own Route 40 revitalization efforts, and it will include members of the public as well as outside other government entities. This effort will be completely transparent to you, and we look forward to the members of the council, your suggestion and your ideas. I hear often from members of the public and from the council about the need to preserve our beautiful open spaces and our farms. Please be assured that we're working hard to protect and preserve our natural beauties and our heritage. With your approval, council, we're moving forward with efforts to add another 12 farms totaling 2,000 acres to our county's agricultural preservation program. Thank you. And I've approved another 1,000 acres of farmland that we hope will be included in the Maryland State Preservation Program. We're working with Harford Land Trust to support their effort to preserve key properties throughout the county, including our most recent joint effort that culminated in the county's purchase of 30 acres of environmentally sensitive woodlands in Perryman for permanent protection. Later this year, we'll begin construction of the final segment of the much-beloved Ma and Pa Trail, which, when complete, will provide an 8-mile walking and biking trail between Fawcett and Forest Hill by way of Bel Air. We've initiated development of a master plan for the 1,430 acres that we now own along the Chesapeake Bay between Havre de Grace and Aberdeen on the peninsula. And we're working with the state now to initiate completion of a 5-mile-long hiking biking trail that we hope will run along the banks of the Susquehanna, the Greenway, along the Susquehanna River from the Conowingo Dam down to the Lapidum Landing. A special word about our veterans. As a war veteran, I understand and appreciate the importance of our veteran communities and the many benefits they offer to our county. I'm especially excited by our governor's bill to accept $40,000 in veterans' retirement benefits from taxation. More power to him on that one. For those who have given so much to their nation, we must do better. Just a few weeks ago, I, along with a number of the members of this council, were honored to participate in a dedication of the Route 155 bridge over Interstate 95 in honor of Specialist Ronnie Sputus, who's a Harford County native and Silver Star recipient who gave his life protecting his fellow soldiers in the Republic of Vietnam. Harford County will continue to work with our veteran community and to elevate their status in my administration and in our community. So much for the fun stuff. Now we'll get down to the meat of this. My primary effort at this time is preparing the county's annual budget. That effort is unfortunately marked with considerable challenges and uncertainty in the financial outlook at our national level, our state level, and through our county's own structural deficit. Our local economy will remain strong for now, but many economists predict a recession in 2023. And whether or not we have a recession, inflation is already here. It's having a significant impact on our bottom line and our ability to meet costs. Rising costs mean we can't simply hold the line on spending, as everything we do now costs more money. Transporting kids to school, providing employee health benefits, heating and cooling these buildings, buying and fueling up ambulances, and recruiting and retaining highly qualified employees, from our accountants to our law enforcement officers. It all costs considerably more now. Property values are up, yes, that's great, so we have a larger assessable property base. However, substantially rising interest rates are now taking a significant toll on real estate transactions. So we're seeing significant drop in our recordation and transfer taxes. We also don't know what additional expense mandates we're going to receive from Annapolis, which has, for the past several years, pushed significant cost onto county government, most notably implementing the Kerwin Commission's so-called blueprint for Maryland's future, and a number of law enforcement-related expenses like body cameras, police oversight boards, police evaluations, and more. Governor Moore's made some promising statements about not pushing more mandates onto the counties, but we can't say for sure whether he'll be able to hold the line on that. We were also challenged by the fact that over the past 2 years, Harford County enacted a very aggressive budget that resulted in spending well beyond our means. At a time when our accounts were flushed with federal COVID relief money and strong revenues, we spent almost $60 million of our savings for ongoing expenses, creating an ongoing structural deficit. Over the past 2 years, the county also strayed from its long-standing practice of keeping the annual borrowing authorization limit at about $50 million. For the current year, that number ballooned to more than $130 million. This escalation is unsustainable, folks, and is going to crowd out our future budgets, leaving less money for teachers and deputies and essential services. We can't continue to leverage our children's future. My budget reflects an uncomfortable return to responsible fiscal management. We'll try to work with everyone to minimize strains, but structural deficits and excessive long-term debts are just unacceptable, and that's why I'm setting aside the lion's share of my time over the next several months to dive into the budget line by line. We also need to consider options to increase revenue in the county without raising taxes. I'm going to ask you all to help me look at, should we increase our tipping fee? That's the cost that haulers pay us to take their garbage. Our costs of processing trash have increased greatly over the years, but the fees that we charge haulers have not been increased. And as a result, we're funding garbage removal from the general fund at a substantial rate. Should we look at paying an increase in the 911 fee? It's currently at 75 cents to $1.50 to offset the cost of adding additional 911 operators that I spoke about earlier. These are among the questions we face in preparing a responsible county budget. In conclusion, I spent 3 years of my life helping the people in Iraq establish provincial governments from the ground up. So I have a unique perspective on the opportunities and challenges of county-level government. Folks, we're blessed with so much in our nation and our county that we too often take for granted. While we have challenges, our blessings are so far greater. So let us thank God for those blessings and pray that He'll grant us the wisdom and the guidance to meet our challenges as we all work together to make this county better than ever. Thank you, and may God bless Harford County.
Good evening. Hopefully everybody can hear me. So for those who don't know me, I am Council Vice President Tony Jan Giordano from District C, which includes Bel Air and Forest Hill. And no, I am not in red tonight, as some of you have asked. Welcome, County Executive, Council President, Council members, ladies, gentlemen, and the great citizens of Harford County, and the audience and viewers watching from home. I have the honor and pleasure to introduce Council President Patrick Vincenti for tonight's State of the County. When I announced that I was running for office, and after some months of campaigning, I remember Pat reaching out to find about my background and why I was running. Those conversations started a relationship of trust and understanding of my beliefs and ideas. What I have learned is that Pat is a superb listener and is extremely mindful when dissecting issues and superb listener and extremely mindful when dissecting issues and making the council feel as one. We might not always agree on everything, but I value his input, I value his opinions and experience when navigating issues on the council. Without further ado, Patrick Vincenti, your council president.
Thank you, Vice President Jan Giordano, for the introduction and your service to Harford County, and especially your friendship. I truly appreciate it. Good evening, County Executive Casserly, council members, directors, county employees, and fellow Harford Countyans. It's an honor and a pleasure to speak with you this evening. My colleagues and I thank you for joining us. County Executive Casserly, we as a council look forward to a highly productive working relationship with you and your administration. We appreciate your willingness to respond to council member questions and concerns. My colleagues and I are committed to working diligently to serve all the citizens of Harford County. As we begin a new term with a new council, I thought it would be beneficial for our citizens to briefly outline the principal duties and responsibilities of the Harford County Council. This mandate is established in the Harford County Charter to provide a check and balance to the executive and administrative branches of county government. We take this responsibility seriously and understand that each decision we make impacts our communities, lives, and livelihoods. In addition to representing their individual districts, citizens, and the county at large, council members sit as the Board of Health, the Zoning Board of Appeals, as well as exercise final approval authority for all legislation, county budget, and fiscal appropriations. Council members also serve as liaisons to nearly 30 boards, commissions throughout the county. Our county is very fortunate to be represented by individuals from diverse professional backgrounds with a variety of life experiences, all of which are either lifelong or long-term residents of Harford County. This provides council members an in-depth knowledge of the county and a unique perspective regarding the districts that they represent. It's now my pleasure to recognize your county council members. Representing District A, Councilman Dion Guthrie. He's a 55-year resident of Harford County, small business owner, 3 terms on the council prior, and currently serving his 4th. District B, Councilman Aaron Penman, a 40-year resident of Harford County, Marine, public safety and law enforcement background for nearly 30 years. Mr. Penman, we thank you for your service and your friendship. District C, Councilman Jan Giordano, also serving as Council Vice President, small business owner, philanthropist, and a 46-year resident of Harford County. District D, Councilman James Riley, 45-year resident of Harford County, previously elected clerk of the court and served 20 years. He comes to us with law enforcement experience and a small business owner. District E, Councilwoman Jessica Boyle-Saddles, a wife, mother, lifelong resident of Harford County, small business owner that truly cares about her community. District F, Councilman Jacob Bennett. He's a 3rd-generation lifelong resident of Harford County, educator, and he is also truly committed to his community. Like several of my council colleagues, I share in the experiences by being a lifelong resident of the county, owning a small business, and actively involved in our nonprofit community. My duty as council president is to continue to lead this legislative body in a manner that promotes effective communication while incorporating the individual thoughts, concerns, and goals of council members in each decision we make. We look forward to working on several items to maintain and even improve the quality of life our citizens have become accustomed to and expect. The charter mandates that this council will be working this term on comprehensive rezoning, where we will look at a potential request for change to property zoning across our county. This process occurs every 7 to 8 years, and the council looks forward to reviewing any and all of those requests thoroughly. Additionally, some of our goals include advocating for enhancements in education, economic development, public safety, and traffic concerns across our county. While the state continues to fall short of its intended funding levels, this council, as in the past, will continue to make education our top priority and support budgets and funding which will enhance and strengthen our children's future. We look forward to the new Homestead Wakefield School coming online, the completion of Joppatown High School's renovations, and the planning for a proposed new school at Campus Hills. These investments in education help to ensure we provide the best public education available in a safe and secure environment. At this time, I'd like to recognize Dr. Bolson and Dr. Felder both here with us this evening. We truly appreciate you being here tonight. My colleagues and I will continue to work to strengthen our efforts in economic development while understanding the importance of preservation. Acting as the Board of Health, the previous council has confirmed Marcy Austin as our county health officer. In recent conversations with Ms. Austin and Mr. Resline, we've identified several areas to strengthen and improve our efforts in environmental health. Council members are committed to working with County Executive Casserly to provide additional support and funding for the health department overall. Current and anticipated growth, especially within the Aberdeen city limits along 22 and I-95, amplifies the need to enhance our public safety presence. Currently in our budget, we have funded and planned for a central precinct and training center for the Harford County Sheriff's Office. This project will help to increase response times and evenly spread our resources across the county. We recognize the important role that our deputies fulfill in keeping our citizens safe every day, which is why this council will continue to advocate for and support capital projects to conclude the Central Precinct, Training Center, all infrastructure projects, road improvements, and continue to approve budgets that bring these plans from design to reality. And as I look into the audience, I see many of our steadfast public safety partners here with us tonight. It's our pleasure to recognize Sheriff Gaylor, Colonel Davis, members of your command staff and deputies, Lieutenant Mullins from the Maryland State Police, our municipal police departments, Chief Moore, Deputy Chief Hughes. We appreciate you being here tonight. Director Ayers, Mr. Woods, Mr. Brennecke, our chiefs that are in the audience, fire and EMS volunteers and service members, we thank each of you for attending this evening and truly appreciate the service and security that you provide for our citizens each and every day. Currently, in my opinion, one of the most important projects that the administration, along with Mr. Seamick and DPW, are looking at is the completion of Woodley Road. In working with our county, state, and federal partners, it's our goal to bring this much-needed second access to Perryman. Mr. County Executive, I thank you for including me in your most recent meeting. I do truly appreciate it. We look forward to working with Major General Edmondson and the Aberdeen Proving Ground on this and other initiatives. APG remains our largest economic driver in the county and employs over 21,000 individuals, many of whom are Harford County residents. In closing, we appreciate and recognize the importance of our dedicated team at the council office, Ms. Dixon, Mr. Kearney. Each of us recognize your dedication and attention to detail in all administrative and legislative matters, legal matters. We thank you. I want to offer my special thanks and sincere appreciation to my legislative aide, Ms. Harris, Ms. Lentz, and Ms. Sapp, and to my budget advisor, Mr. Ondish, for the service and commitment to me, my office, this council, and the county. Jeannie, I want to thank you for your continued strength and support. Without you, I couldn't serve in any capacity. Your continued health, safety, and well-being for all Harford Countyans is and will continue to be the #1 concern of this council. Harford County truly is a great place to live, work, and raise a family. Thank you, and God bless this great county. Good evening. Chair calls to order Legislative Session Day 23-004. I would ask you to please join us in standing for the pledge, followed by the opening prayer by Councilman Bennett. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America
and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Boy, does that sound good tonight.
Dear God, you are known by many names, and tonight we come before you as one community. Together we pray for clarity, conviction, and character for all those who take on the mission of leadership in our community. May our words and deeds be a reflection of Psalm 112, verses 4 through 10, which calls for the righteous to be upright, to give generously and freely to the poor, to be full of mercy and compassion, to never be shaken or afraid by evil rumors, and to hold our heads up in honor. May our mistakes be forgiven, our wrongs be made right, and our wounds be healed. Thank you for all you do. Amen.
Amen. Thank you, Mr. Bennett. Agenda item number 4, presentation of proclamations. We have none. Agenda number 5, consideration petitions, applications, appointments, and nominations. Council appointment, Harford TV. Ms. Sottles.
Mr. President, I'd like to make a motion. I move to approve Kirsty Durr as the Harford TV, Harford County Council appointment.
Thank you. May I have a second?
Second.
Thank you. Been moved and seconded to approve council appointments. Or is there any discussion? I may just comment, Ms. Durr will be representing my office, and I think she's a very, very capable individual and look forward to working with her. And with that, Ms. Dixon.
Mr. President?
Aye.
Mr. Guthrie?
Aye.
Mr. Penman?
Aye.
Mr. Giangiordano?
Aye.
Mr. Riley?
Aye.
Mrs.
Aye.
Boyle-Sottles? Mr. Bennett?
Aye.
Thank you. There being 7 votes in the affirmative, 0 in the negative, the appointment is hereby approved. People's Council, Citizens Advisory Board, Luann Conway, representing me, Gloria Moon, Councilman Guthrie, David Stromberg, Councilman Penman, Sally LeBaire, Councilman Giangiordano, Joe Norman, Councilman Riley, Hillary Smolensky, Councilwoman Boyle-Sottles, Glenn Dutterer, Councilman Bennett. May I have a motion?
Council President, I move to approve Luann Conway, Gloria Moon, David Stromberg, Sally LeBaire, Joseph Norman, Hillary Smolensky, and Glenn Dutterer.
May I have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Guthrie. It's been moved and seconded to approve council appointments. Is there any discussion? Ms. Dixon.
Mr. President?
Aye.
Mr. Guthrie?
Aye.
Mr. Penman?
Aye.
Mr. Giangiordano?
Aye.
Mr. Riley?
Aye.
Mrs. Boyle-Sottles?
Aye.
Mr. Bennett?
Aye.
Being 7 votes in the affirmative, 0 in the negative, the appointments are hereby approved. Executive appointments, Personnel Advisory Board, Mr. Giangiordano.
Council President, I move to approve the reappointment of Theodore
Wazalewski.
and new appointment of Deborah D. Lynch and James C. Richardson.
Thank you. May I have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Riley. It's been moved and seconded to approve executive appointments. Is there any discussion? Ms. Dixon.
Mr. President?
Aye.
Mr. Guthrie?
Aye.
Mr. Penman?
Aye.
Mr. Giangiordano?
Aye.
Mr. Riley?
Aye.
Mrs. Boyle-Sottles?
Aye.
Mr. Bennett?
Aye.
There being 7 votes in the affirmative, 0 in the negative, the appointments are hereby approved. Ethics Board, new appointments. I am going to go ahead and announce the names, but there will be no action taken on them tonight to give council members a week to interview and understand the resumes. So the first is Joseph Castley, Dee Galloway, Deanne Snodgrass, Kirk Volmick, and Allison Whitaker. And again, we will look at these at the next council meeting, if that's okay with all the council members. Thank you. Special presentations, we have none. Approval of minutes. Zoning appeal case number 5970, MCI Telecommunications Corporation and McKinstry Ascension LLC. Legislative day 23-003, January 17, 2023. Are there any corrections to the minutes? There being no corrections, the minutes stand approved. Agenda item number 8, introduction and consideration of resolutions. Mr. Giangiordano.
Resolution 002-23, Havre de Grace Annexation Zoning Waiver introduced by Councilmember Bennett and Council President Vincenti. A resolution by the County Council waiving the 5-year waiting period contained in Local Government Article Section 4-416 of the Annotated Code of Maryland in order to permit property consisting of approximately 22.684 acres annexed by the City of Havre de Grace located 1535 Pulaski Highway, Havre de Grace, Maryland, 21078, which is currently zoned Harford County's GI, General Industrial District, zoning classification to be zoned under the City of Havre de Grace's R1 residential zoning classification. Public hearing the 7th of March at 7 p.m. in these chambers.
Thank you. Agenda item number 9, introduction of bills. Again, Mr. Giangiordano.
Bill 23-001, fire hydrant petition, Stack Store, 726 Bel Air Road, introduced by Council President Vincenti at the request of the County Executive. An act to approve a petition from the owners of property located at 726 Bel Air Road, which is within the boundaries of Harford County, Maryland, for hydrant service from water lines owned by Maryland American Water Company, and to authorize the county to charge each owner of the property in accordance with water and sewer rules and regulations. A pro rata share of the fire hydrant rental fee charged to Harford County annually by the Maryland American Water Company for said fire hydrants in accordance with Section 256-15 fire hydrants of Article 1, general provisions of Chapter 256, Water and Sewers of the Harford County Code as amended. Public hearing March 7th at 7 p.m. in these chambers. Bill 23-02, fire hydrant petition, Rock Spring Road, introduced by Council President Vincenti at the request of the County Executive. An act to approve a petition from the owners of 2 properties located on Rock Spring Road, which is within the boundaries of Harford County, Maryland, for fire hydrant service from water lines owned by Maryland American Water Company, and to authorize the county to charge each owner of the properties in accordance with the water and sewer rules and regulations. A pro rata share of the fire hydrant rental fee charged to Harford County annually by Maryland American Water for said fire hydrants in accordance with Section 256-15 fire hydrants of Article 1, general provisions of Charter 256, Water and Sewers of the Harford County Code as amended. Public hearing March 7th at 7 p.m. in these chambers.
Thank you. Agenda item number 10, introduction and consideration of amendments. We have none. 11, call for final reading of bills. We have none. 12, enrollment of bills. We have none. 13, unfinished business. We have none. 14, new business. Executive Castley has submitted 2 executive orders, one being Executive Order 23-01, creation of Emergency Services Citizen Advisory Board. We received that on January the 24th. And then Executive Order 2302, designation of succession of the Harford County Executive. We received that on February the 1st. Both of these executive orders will be posted on the website for viewing by anyone that's interested in seeing them. And there's no action taken by the council. If I may, I'd like to go to comments and input from attending citizens. Ms. Dixon, do we have anyone signed up?
We do, Mr. President. I believe we have 31 speakers this evening.
Okay, as a reminder to everyone, 3 minutes. Be respectful to each other and respectful to this council. So call your first speaker.
Nancy Post, followed by Benjamin Heiser.
Good evening, ma'am. Name and address for the record.
Good evening. Nancy Post. I live in Abingdon. My address is on file.
I need your address, ma'am.
411 Green Tree Circle.
Thank you, ma'am.
I ask all members of the council to vote in support of County Executive Casilli's 6-month warehouse moratorium. Many concerned citizens previously requested this in opposition to the destruction of Abingdon Woods and Perryman Peninsula. Citizens' voices need to be heard and heeded by council over the noise and temptations offered by developers. Citizens must live among the ruins of overdevelopment. We suffer the consequences of inescapable air and noise pollution, congested roads, dead animals laying in roads due to lost habitat, loss of nature's tranquility, increased crime rates, and more. Harford government is turning into our county into Baltimore County. Diverse and lower socioeconomic Southern Harford has suffered the worst of it. Precious little unadulterated natural habitat remains. Once the moratorium is passed, the 6-month period must not simply be window dressing or for show, but must include an earnest and thorough study of zoning, development, and permit regulations and procedures with a primary focus on warehouse and distribution center construction. Citizen involvement must be a key component of the moratorium process to achieve good results and transparency. Mr. John Carreri remarked in a June 7th, 2022 meeting that a council member knew a lot of the secrets and where a lot of the bodies are buried pertaining to Harford County affairs. It is for this reason and many others, including personal benefit and/or agendas, that I support reasonable, consecutive, and lifelong term limits for all elected Harford officials, including council members, council president, and county executive. It is my hope that the new council members have brought along their fresh ideas, moral fortitude, selfless goodwill, and determination to reflect the will of their constituents. Mr. Bennett is one such council member. I request that the county executive and council drop their lawsuit against Mr. Bennett and rightfully accept him fully on the council, as done for former long-term Republican council member and president, Mr. Slutsky. Per evidence of the destruction of Harford by developers aided by Harford officials, the greatest conflict of interest is not from a teacher employed by the Board of Education, but by the Harford politicians and officials who benefit from developers' coffers, favors, or the like. Thank you.
Ma'am, just for clarity, the council has no lawsuit against Mr. Bennett. Just for clarity. There never was one, ma'am. Not from the council. Call your next speaker.
Okay, I
Thank you,
stand
ma'am.
corrected.
Thank you, ma'am. Good evening, sir. Name and address, please.
Good evening. Benjamin Heiser, 3412 Widows Care, Folsom, Maryland, 21047. Thank you all for having me here tonight, allowing me to speak. I just have 2 items. Number 1 is very important that Harford County take into consideration the rapid growth in population, which is creating a strain on every resource that we have. However, the largest resource stress that we're having right now is the volunteer fire and EMS. I understand fiscally it is very difficult right now to calculate the costs, especially how we are right now in our financial situation. However, we must create a roadmap and change whether these volunteer firemen and firewomen and EMS are to actually be employees or not. We are a fast-growing county, and we will be way more successful than Baltimore County will be. In order for us to remain nice and safe, we really do need to create a roadmap and work on these things over the next year. My second item is our county executive will be providing to you 3 nominations for the Board of Education. Dr. Poynton, Ms. Strauss, and Ms. Kutcher. I request that these candidates be confirmed without any further delay. Thank you.
Thanks, sir.
Brendan Patton, followed by Joshua Berry.
Good evening, sir. Name and address, please.
Brendan Patton, 2054 Park Beach Drive, Perryman.
Thanks, sir.
I've come here tonight to discuss the Harford County Zoning Code and its lack of enforcement on the industrial developments planned and current in Perryman. I've printed out a couple sections of the code. You should all have a copy of that in front of you. We'll start with page 1 of the zoning code. Now I'm quoting directly from paragraph 367-3A titled Purpose. The purpose of the zoning code is to promote the health, safety, morals, and general welfare of the community. It goes on to say that the purpose is, quote, for the conservation of natural resources, including the preservation of productive agricultural land. The last line in this paragraph also states the purpose of the code is to conserve the value of property. The proposed freight terminal on the Mitchell Farm in Perryman goes against the very purpose of the Harford County zoning code. The code is to promote the health, safety, and general welfare of the community. The only access road to Perryman is a 2-lane road with no shoulders, lined with residential homes. Does bringing thousands of diesel-burning trucks down that road promote the health and safety of the community? I don't think so. It also states that the code's purpose is to promote the conservation of natural resources, including the preservation of agricultural land. Does paving over 10 million square feet of farmland in Perryman, does that promote the conservation of natural resources? No. Also, part of this 10 million square feet covers part of the Harford County wellhead protection area. Does paving over the wellhead protection area protect natural resources? No. It threatens our most important resource, clean water. The last line in paragraph A says that the zoning code is to conserve the value of property. Does building a freight terminal in the middle of a residential area conserve the property values of those people? Of course it doesn't. Property values in Perryman are already negatively being affected, and they will continue to be negatively affected if this project is developed. One property owner does not have the right to diminish everyone else's property value in the neighborhood. Paragraph B of the same section of the code says that the zoning code will not be interpreted or implemented in any manner as to interfere with the person's use of their home, commonly associated with the enjoyment of the home. So, do you think building a freight terminal in someone's backyard is going to interfere with their enjoyment of their home? Of course it is. So we haven't even got past page 1 of the Harford County zoning code, and we can see the proposed Mitchell development is in conflict with the purpose. The next page I printed for you is a permitted use chart. It shows that, it's page 136 of the code. It shows that specifically listed as prohibited in the LI district, which is what the Mitchell property is commercial vehicle and equipment storage. Prohibited. The next page I printed for you is page 145. On this page, you'll see 2 specific uses listed, freight terminal and truck stop terminal, both not permitted in the light industrial area. So let's look at the last page in the seconds we have left. It defines general industrial district. The district is intended for industrial uses of a large scale, more intensive processing, and unenclosed storage, which may substantially impact surrounding properties. This sounds exactly like the proposed development. That's a general industrial use. It's not permitted in light industrial. I'm not sure why this project has not been tossed out by Harford County Planning and Zoning yet. It doesn't make any sense to me. Please vote for the moratorium and take that time to investigate why this wasn't thrown out as soon as it was presented to the Harford County Planning and Zoning.
Thank you, sir. Good evening, sir. Name and address, please.
Yeah, good evening, guys. Joshua Barry, 1307 Artist Lane. How you guys doing? So I hope and pray that with Mrs. Hahn and Mrs. Alvarez, along with Bob Cassidy's Board of Education appointments, we can stop things like the following example from happening in our school district. This is a summary on how the LGBT cult is destroying girls with the help of schools, judges, lawyers, and doctors. Recently, the state of Virginia House of Delegates has introduced a bill called SAGE's Law with the aim of protecting children from groomers, schools, and sex traffickers. The history behind the impetus of this law is stomach churning to the extreme. It's as follows. The girls' school encouraged her to live as a boy after she adopted trans ideology solely as a way to fit in, as the girl saw all the girls there were either lesbian or trans. The school counselors hid the fact that this female was now using a boy's name despite the school being made aware by the mother that Sage had mental health concerns. The girl tried to use the boy's bathroom and got beat up badly. She ran away and was sex trafficked. The FBI found her in a sex trafficking ring based in Baltimore. The judge at the hearing, to get her back, insisted they call her by her male pronouns. When the parents failed to use these fictional pronouns, the judge threw the parents out of court, and then she was put into a boys' home where she was further drugged by the kids in the home and sexually abused even more. She then ran away from the boys' home and was sex trafficked again. Her radical lawyer wanted to use her as a cash cow all the way to the Supreme Court and hid the letters her family sent her. The doctor at the gender-affirming clinic she was sent to told her to cut off her breasts. Not until the damage and abuse was done was she finally recovered from sex trafficking, where she has since re-identified with her female genetics. So when you cast your vote for Bob's appointments, understand that regardless of the names that you may be called by those who would rather deify people with mental illness than protect the innocence and purity of children, you are standing up for God's natural order, the moral high ground, restabilizing society, and bringing order back from chaos in the schools, and eventually in the minds of the children who are suffering from these psychological attacks from essentially groomers and pedophiles. Kids identifying as either gay or trans is up to 20% in the generation that's in school currently. There is no way this is an accident or naturally occurring without an abundance of indoctrination. Confirm Mr. Castley's appointments, and let's start putting an end to this destructive ideology. Let it start right here in Harford County and spread to the rest of the county. And with the 5 seconds I have left, Mr. Bennett, I applaud your desire to be a teacher and serve, and I understand that it's a gray area.
Your time
being
is
on
up,
the
sir.
Council. I would just ask you to recuse yourself for these types of votes that
Your
affect
time is up, sir.
Harford County School District. Thank you.
Henry Gibbons. Henry Gibbons, followed by Victoria Harvey.
Good evening, sir. Name and address, please.
Henry Gibbons, 2402 Papaya Road, Edgewood, Maryland. I heard some good things from the county executive, and I'm particularly excited about the attention potentially being paid to the Route 40 corridor, which has not received the attention that it is due over the years. But I want to go with something that really kind of surprised me to hear, and that is the appointment of, or the request to appoint Mr. Joe Castley to the ethics board. Now, while you're reviewing his resume, you might also consider reviewing his background. And before we go into that, I want to explain what the ethics board is charged with. It administers the county's code of ethics. The Code of Ethics determines whether an employee of the county may participate in awarding contracts, directing business, prohibits an employee from using public office for personal gain, from engaging in nepotism, interfering with citizens' rights to participate in political activity, etc. And it sets conditions on the kinds of gifts that our public officials may accept. The board also investigates complaints of potential violations and has the power to refer such matters to the county attorney. So now for some background on Mr. Joe Castley. He was disbarred in 2021 for withholding evidence of misconduct and representation and evidence in a murder trial of Mr. John Huffington, who, in spite of having his initial conviction sent back twice for new trials, spent 32 years in prison before being freed. He was pardoned in 2022 by Governor Hogan. For those who keep track, that's $5,000 a month in prison. That's about $1.9 million in taxpayer dollars just to house him, not to mention legal expenses to the state. But expenses aside, I ask everyone in this room to think about that for a second and ask yourselves what kind of prosecutor you might want to face if your life, your liberty, and your pursuit of happiness were on the line for a crime that you didn't commit. Now ask yourself whether you'd want someone who'd shown a cavalier disregard for someone else's inalienable rights to have a seat on a board with the power to make a criminal referral. The Maryland Court of Appeals ruled then that his conduct was quote, much more egregious than that of a lawyer in an official or government position who simply fails to follow proper procedural rules. And it disbarred him specifically, quote, to ensure the public's confidence in the legal profession by deterring other attorneys from engaging in similar misconduct. If this is how the impartial courts felt about him, why should Harford County accord him a place of potential influence on matters of legality that influence our perception of the legitimacy of our government, and then give him a potential conduct to influence legal action? I urge this body not to confirm Mr. Joe Casserly to the Board of Ethics in Harford County and to thereby entrust him with an important position that requires seriously moral fiber to a man with a demonstrably weak thread. Thank you.
Good evening, ma'am.
My name is Victoria Harvey. I live at 1420 Valbrook Court North, Bel Air, Maryland, 21015. I am here to commend Mr. Casserly for having the fortitude to appoint individuals that will enhance our Board of Education, especially Dr. Aaron Point. His military service as a special operator and the entrepreneurial experience is precisely what our Board of Education needs. The Maryland State Legislature is attempting to usurp local BOE's influence on schools by centralizing and legislating curriculum. Mr. Casserly's three appointments will enhance our Board of Education while ensuring parents' concerns are not ignored. As a graduate of Bel Air High, it is appalling to see how much ground our schools have lost educating our children. These three appointments will help our BOE get our schools back on track to educating students with the skills needed to be a successful adult, whether that is going to college, entering the military, the workforce, or a trade school. I assure you, those supporting the appointments are not extreme conservatives or radical fringe, as we've been labeled. We are parents that want our children educated, not indoctrinated. Our county executive received 64% of the vote to win his seat. Those of us that voted for Mr. Casserly into office, that's 64% in case anybody missed it, back his three appointments. I implore you to support our county executive appointments to the Board of Education. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, ma'am.
Josh Kozel, followed by Melissa Hahn.
Actually, Josh called to reserve a spot for We the People of Maryland. Respectfully ask for 5 minutes as I represent an organization.
There will be no 5 minutes. You're at, is that true, Josh?
An organization.
Okay.
I talked to Ms. Jeanette, is that her name? Raspy voice in the office.
So you'll get 3 minutes.
But I registered as We the People.
Appreciate that.
We've kept it all at 3 minutes for
Sure.
a while now.
Okay, I represent We the People of Maryland.
Yes.
Our mission is to advocate for your right to control your livelihood, your property, your family, and your destiny. Our vision is to provide an organized outlet for Americans who are frustrated by government overreach. You're probably going to hear from some people on the left tonight. They're going to tell you that the newly appointed BOE members are strong conservatives who will eliminate the ridiculous social engineering the left has been pushing for years. Sadly, I fear they're gaslighting you. Appears to me the status quo will be maintained, and the BOE will turn its focus towards radically inflating the capital budget to greatly benefit large donors in this county. Hope I am wrong. Overdevelopment. This is something we could talk about all night, but we don't have that time. New council has even more ties to the overdevelopers and large donors than any council in recent memory. Some of you will directly benefit from your decisions than others. I doubt you will have the fortitude to recuse yourself from voting on matters that will directly benefit your bank account. I hope I am wrong. On the subject of medical tyranny, thankfully, the last council removed the far-left political operative Dr. Bashai from his very important position. The health department, which you oversee, should never be placing politics above the health of all Harford County residents. You must now dismantle the vaccine passport that was unwisely created under Dr. Bashai. This tyrannical weapon must never be used on the good people of Harford County. We spent a lot of time in here giving testimony to warn how dangerous the jab was. We were ignored. People died, sadly. Hope you will investigate the local hospital and hold accountable the people who profited from killing our citizens with remdesivir and the death vax. It is now obvious the attempted forced vaccinations and forced masking have had a devastatingly negative impact on the health and welfare of our citizens. I hope the leaders responsible for this carnage are held accountable. The Board of Ethics. It's great to see Harford County is addressing the Board of Ethics. Its revival is long overdue, as the terms of all current members have long ago expired, and at least one no longer lives in the county. Please make sure the new Board of Ethics is ready to hit the ground running. There will be leads for them to follow up on. We the people will not be attending every council meeting in person as we have in the past. This is the good news, bad news situation. You won't have 30 speakers calling out your tyrannical behavior on Tuesday nights. There will be more time for you to meet with large donors and plot the sale of Harford County. You can pretend that traffic isn't the nightmare it is and that poor planning has not destroyed Harford's once charming feel. The bad news is we will be using our extra time to dig through financial reports, to expose your backdoor dealings. We will be launching a podcast to discuss the shell companies you launder campaign contributions with. The podcast will shine a light on the dark, corrupt side of Harford County politics. We will focus on council members' connections to the overdevelopers and big donors. If you are lucky, we may even reach out to some of you for an interview. Remember, every crooked move you make, every corrupt breath you take, we'll be watching you.
Good evening, ma'am.
Good evening, council members. My name is Melissa Hahn, and my address is 211 Powellsville Road, Powellsville, Maryland, 21132. I feel like I'm...
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you. I'm here tonight speaking on behalf of myself only, and I do not represent the Board of Education or its members, myself as a citizen of Harford County. I would first like to congratulate our newly elected and re-elected council members. And I would also like to congratulate our newly elected county executive, Bob Cassley, and thank him for all of his hard work and dedication to the citizens of Harford County and for taking on the challenging task of finding exceptional candidates to be appointed to the Board of Education. I'm sure it was certainly a difficult task to choose from the large and extensive pool of candidates. That being said, I would like to ask the County Council to approve County Executive's picks, Ms. Lauren Strauss, Dr. Aaron Poynton, and Ms. Terry Kocher. I've had the pleasure to work with Ms. Strauss on many occasions. She is an amazing person, and I know that she will always put our children's educational needs first as a member of our Board of Education. I've spoke with Mr. Poynton a few times, and a family member of Ms. Kocher, excuse me. I am confident that these three candidates and their vast experiences make them the very best choices for our Board of Education, and that they will do an exceptional job. Council members, in closing, I ask you to please confirm our county executive's picks for our appointed Board of Education members, Ms. Lauren Strauss, Dr. Aaron Poynton, and Ms. Terry Kocher. Thank you again, and have a wonderful evening.
Stella Peters, followed by Brenda Pedrick.
Good evening, ma'am. Name and address, please.
Stella Peters, 399 Singer Road. Can you hear me? I didn't think so. Okay. Can you hear me now?
The mic's off.
Turn the mic off.
That's not the clock. Oh, okay. There. Okay. All right. Good evening, council members and President Vincenti. I would like to start first by thanking Mr. Guthrie for attending the school board meetings and displaying an interest in our children's education. That is very refreshing. I would also like to thank Mr. Penman for proposing term limits. I agree and support this position and that we need to have term limits. Mr. Bennett, I would also like to thank you for attending the school board meetings and agree that the current reading curriculum is deficient and needs to be replaced. I was also wondering if you will be holding true to your campaign promise to donate half of your council salary back to the community. If so, who would you be donating this salary to? I'm here to ask that you confirm Mr. Castley's nominations to the school board and mention why you should vote yes to confirming them. Number one, all three individuals are extremely qualified and will focus on student achievement. Mr. Poynton, number two, Mr. Poynton, Ms. Strauss, and Ms. Coker have impressive credentials that would be an asset to the school board and our community. Number three, while I do not know them personally, I believe they will put the needs of our children first and build positive relationships. I believe that they will set politics aside in making good, sound judgments and decisions and do what is best for all students. They will help to improve the quality of public education for children of all ages, incomes, and backgrounds. And finally, I want to thank Mr. Bob Castley for his continued hard work and for his excellent picks and for doing what is right for our children and future generations. Psalms 127:3 says, "Behold, children are a heritage from the Lord, the fruit of the womb a reward. Like arrows in the hand of a warrior are the children of one's youth." Thank you.
Thank you. Good evening, ma'am. Name and address, please.
Hello, Brenda Pedrick. Is it working?
I'm sorry?
Is it working? Okay.
Yes.
I live at 1002 Markham Court, Bel Air. Good evening, council members. I am a mother of an elementary school student here in Harford County, and I wanted to commend Mr. Castley on his 3 appointees and encourage the council to support his decision as well. As a concerned mother that has only been in this fight for proper education and parental rights for just under a year now, I want to speak on behalf of the other conservative parents that are afraid to speak. I say this because there has been some rhetoric from certain groups that imply that us conservative parents or far-right groups are the minority and that putting conservatives on the BOE won't reflect or support the majority. Well, I say this is false. Yes, if you were to go to a BOE meeting currently on any given night or watch online, you will see more support for these groups. And yes, they have a right to speak. And good for them that they are good at drumming up support. But I can also tell you that because they are so bold and outspoken at times, they intimidate others that would like to speak out. The ones that want to speak out against them, I should say. Sadly, there are so many people that are afraid to speak up because they fear backlash. We have become a society that is so concerned about being politically correct or being called out for their opinions that rather than be honest and speak up, they remain silent and tiptoe around anyone that they might offend. Well, honestly, I'm sick of it. I won't be that person that's silent, and I will speak my mind and my truth. And the funny thing is that that's what the other side wants too. It's a free country. So some say that these 3 appointees are too conservative and don't reflect the majority. Again, this is false. And the way that I see it, our past Harford County BOE was staffed to represent a more liberal way of thinking. With County Executive Castley's appointees, these 3 new members, I feel this will make an even playing field, and I respectfully ask that you go forward with these 3 appointees. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am.
Cassandra Beverly, followed by Cheryl Adams.
Good evening, ma'am. Name and address, please.
Good evening. Cassandra Beverly, 137 Alice Ann Street, Bel Air, Maryland. Good evening, County Council President Vicente and members of the council. I represent the Caucus of African American Leaders whose mission it is to advocate for fairness, equity, and inclusion for African Americans in this county. In the month of February, we take time to highlight the contributions made by Black men and women to the building of this nation. We unearth the hidden treasures of our history to tell the stories of those whose role in the development of America have for far too long gone unnoticed and unheralded. Last year, I had the pleasure of attending the unveiling of the monument dedicated to Sergeant Alfred B. Hilton, the only native-born Harford Countyan to be awarded the Medal of Honor. Sergeant Hilton is but one of many whose lives were not thought worthy of this community's recognition and honor. Sergeant Alfred B. Hilton is African American. I urge each of you and the broader community to look beyond Dr. King, Harriet Tubman, and Frederick Douglass as you seek to learn about the contributions Black folks have made to this country. Our community will not acquiesce in any efforts to keep the history and contributions of our people buried, ignored, or misrepresented. There's a movement in this country and this county to keep the true history of this nation from being taught and celebrated. We will not remain silent and allow the negative and downright false narratives about how our students are being educated about matters of race to gain a foothold in this county. I'm deeply troubled by the nominees put forward by the county executive for the Board of Education. I'm fairly certain that Dr. Boynton, after working on Governor DeSantis' campaign, wants to import his ideas to this county. We must not be persuaded that we can make progress by banning books and refusing to teach truth to students. We will not endorse candidates who support groups who seek to deny Black and white students the right to learn the truth, even when it is uncomfortable. The health and welfare of our community demands that these nominees receive a no vote. Do not play politics with the lives of our students. Black Lives Matter and Black History Matters. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Good evening, ma'am. Name and address, please.
Cheryl Adams, 2025 Colgate Circle. County Executive Castley, in his first few sentences, talked about the beautiful diversity of Harford County, which is not exactly represented by our council here, but I assure you that there is beautiful diversity here. And I hope that when you take this week to go over the 3 appointees that Castley has offered for Board of Ed, you will keep that in mind and keep the remaining diversity of the county in mind, as was just talked about. And I Googled the 3, did a quick search and thought, I'm not so sure that all of the children of Harford County are going to be adequately represented on the board with these 3 nominees. But I do lift leadership from NAACP, from the Black Caucus. I trust and value their thoughts and their words on it, and I hope you will too. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am.
Linda Stein Flint, followed by Emma Peller.
Good evening, ma'am. Name and address, please.
Linda Stein Flint for 3 Winslow Drive in Bel Air. Good evening, council members and council president. My first comment is addressed to Councilman Bennett. Congratulations, on you winning your election. You were not my choice of candidate, but you won. We all have to move on and work together. But what really concerns me is how, during your campaign, you intended to deceive and mislead the people of Harford County, because our county charter clearly states that you cannot be employed by the Harford County government, and especially when 51% of our budget is going to the Board of Education. It is a conflict of interest. Years ago, when Councilman Slutsky ran for the position, there was an uproar and he retired so that there was no conflict of interest. You will have to recuse yourself from many decisions. The budget decision, infrastructure decisions, because infrastructure is budget, and that's a conflict of interest. The new schools that are coming, you cannot even have any input into the candidates that County Executive Cassidy has put forth for the school board. You have to recuse yourself in so many, so you are not a benefit to your constituents and to Harford County. The charter has been voted on. Any amendments and everything have to be voted on by the people. You know, the council, you know, puts the amendment forward and the people vote on that. You're doing a disservice. And what a poor example to the students that you are now teaching to show a complete lack of respect for our county charter, our process, and everything that we have here. I hope you, I mean, I have no problem with you staying on the council, but you need to find yourself a job that is not as a teacher, someplace else, doing something else in Harford County. And
Ms. Flint, hold on just a minute. No more of that, please. The last thing I want to do is clear this chambers tonight, but I will. Go ahead, ma'am.
Yes, you're welcome to stay on the council, but just please find another job so that you can stay on and be a benefit to your constituents. We will hold you accountable about your promise of your salary. You said that you were going to donate half of your salary, so we will be following up to find out where that is going and what you are supporting. And to the council and all of you and council president, please support County Executive Cassidy's appointments to the school board, because they are three individuals that would add to the quality of candidates that we have in the school board now, that were all voted in, and they will work for all the students of Harford County, and they will respect parents' rights. And they will also work on, they are also about, you know, reading, writing, math, civics, history, arts. They're about having our students be better students and that they will be more productive in society. And I'm sorry, Councilman Bennett, you will not be able to vote on that, so please do make sure you recuse yourself. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am.
Emma Peller, followed by Robert McArthur.
Good evening, ma'am. Name and address, please.
Good evening. Emma Peller, 1447 Redfield Road, Bel Air. Good evening, Council President and Council members, and thank you for the opportunity to speak with you tonight. I'm here representing not only myself, but as a proud member of the Harford County branch of the NAACP. In 2021, the highest court in Maryland disbarred a former Harford County state's attorney. He was disbarred for withholding evidence in a murder case and lying about it for years. The court thought this was so egregious that they made the decision to disbar, even though the attorney had been retired for years, in order to ensure he could never return to practice. His response? I don't give a damn. Does that sound very ethical to you? The state's attorney in this case is Joseph Castley, brother of County Executive Bob Castley, and appointed to the Board of Ethics. Is this the best person for the job, who can make ethical decisions on complex issues that arise during the operation of our county government? This is yet another example of the executive branch acting in their own interest, not the interest of the citizens of the county. Please vote no on the appointment of Joseph Castley to the Board of Ethics. Thank you.
Good evening, sir. Name and address, please.
Hi, Robert McArthur, 1301 Marquis Court in Falston. I first want to congratulate everyone, all the council men and women that were elected by your district. You have been entrusted with making great decisions on behalf of not only your district, but on behalf of everyone in Harford County. And I do congratulate you and also Bob Castley for winning his portion as well as county executive. I just want to share a couple of things. I don't have notes with me, but again, my name is Robert McArthur, and I'm a proud Native American, as you can very well see by my complexion and bald head. That's a joke. Some people can laugh if you like. It's okay. But I am a proud Native American with the Osage tribe in Pawhuska, Oklahoma. And I'm just excited to be a long-standing citizen and businessman here in Harford County. I just want to share that, you know, my wife and I, we do a podcast. We're up to almost 100 episodes. And there's something that I love about Harford County is we enjoy interviewing business owners and things like that. But the biggest thrill that I have is to be able to reach out to those that are charitable organizations throughout our county. You do not even realize how many individual charitable organizations there are that have their heart and their soul poured into each one of your districts. Extreme Family Outreach would be one of them, but they're just one of so many that serve the underserved communities throughout our county. And I just want to encourage you to, as these meetings continue throughout the year, to lean in to the voices of those that are sometimes voiceless, and to lean into what their needs are for the community, because my wife and I listen to them on a bi-weekly basis on our podcast, and we really enjoy hearing the things that they are doing for our great county here in Harford. The second thing I just want to mention is that you, well, I'll pass that for another time. But anyhow, I know we're tight on time here, but I just want to share that also that the voices of the children of this great county will finally be heard. Will finally be voiced out through our Board of Education, and I really do encourage you to please please pass the 3 nominations and include them into the Board of Education. These are great voices that need to be heard. I stand in lieu of the 5 grandchildren that I have, and I want to be the great granddad for them, and to know that they are going to be raised throughout the school district of Harford County in a great and equitable and diverse time that we're in. So thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Call your next speaker.
Beth Shepard, followed by Gary Johnson.
Good evening, ma'am. Name and address, please.
My name is Beth Shepard, and I live at 1406 Pumpkin Patch Court. I live in the Autumn Run Townhome Development in Abingdon, and I've lived there since 2011. In this development, there are 11 homes on Pumpkin Patch, which are nestled in the woods and secluded from the main part of the development. And all of us that live on this little court bought our homes because of the beautiful scenery of the trees, especially in the fall, which surrounded our homes. In January of 2019, at a DAC meeting, we learned of the proposed destruction, 330 acres of forestry, to put in warehouses, and that are going to directly affect us as residents with increased traffic, tractor trailers going in and out 24 hours a day, 24/7, loss to home and property values, etc. This past summer, I bared witness, along with my neighbors, in absolute horror as ginormous pieces of equipment tore down tree after tree after tree, falling like pickup sticks. The forest was being raped, and there was nothing anybody could do about it. We knew this was coming, but we had no idea of the magnitude of the destruction happening right before our eyes. How could this be happening? They were so close to our homes. Tonka trucks were from me to you away in our backyards. The noise was deafening. How can giant mega warehouses be going in right in our backyards? Day after day, weekend after weekend, late into the evening, these giant Tonka toys were tearing down the forest as quickly as they could. And now, instead of looking out my back window or sitting on my deck, looking at beautiful trees in the fall, I now look at stormwater ponds, black and orange silt fencing with big red signs that say, "Keep out, violators will be prosecuted." There is no more buffer, as the trees that once lined the entrance to our court are gone, and now all we hear is the traffic buzzing from I-95. When the citizens of Harford County go to the polls in November to vote, we elect officials that we think and hope will represent us and our values and our best interests. During the last several years, myself, neighbors, and others, along with the Harford County Climate Action, have fought every step of the way to let our former county executive know that we do not want these mega warehouses built in our neighborhoods, and the reasons why, but it fell on deaf ears. We were ignored and turned down at every point pursuing his own agenda and political gain, never agreeing to any meeting with us to hear our complaints. But finally, this past November, a new county executive was elected. People actually changed their affiliation so they could vote for Mr. Casserly. Finally, we have someone who has been listening to the cries of the citizens of Harford County, but now is in a position to do something about it instead of ignores us and hoping we will go away. I am here tonight to ask you for support of Mr. Casserly's moratorium to put a 6-month pause on approvals of permits for county warehouse projects. As Mr. Casserly stated, it will give his administration time to study the zoning and
Ms.
development
Shepherd,
regulations.
please bring your comments to a close.
I'm sorry?
Please bring your comments to a close. Your time is up.
Okay, I'm just asking that you'll support this moratorium on warehouse
Thank you,
projects.
ma'am.
Thank you.
Good evening.
Good evening, sir.
My
and
name is
address.
Gary Johnson. I live at 704 Pleasant Hill Circle in Kingsville, Maryland, 21087. I didn't really come here tonight prepared to speak, but I was aware of certain issues. I have been aware of them. In fact, ever since the COVID pandemic, which was unleashed on us by the Communist Chinese, brought our state and our nation to a halt, kept our children out of school. And because of that, because we have a grandchild in school, because we have other relatives and friends who teach in the school system and who have children in the school system, we became aware of things that to us were shocking. The way that our students were being taught, the things that they were being taught, the abuses that they were forced to be subjected to, and the fact that the teachers and administrators that we had entrusted them to were not only not doing anything to protect them, but they were sometimes covering up such abuses. I find that appalling. And so I rise to speak in support of the county executive's appointees that he has appointed to the Harford County Board of Education. Someone mentioned before the electoral victory that you all have achieved and that has put you in your positions. That's because those people who voted for you entrusted you and entrusted to make good judgment in the decisions regarding the citizens in your areas. Likewise, Executive Casserly won a significant majority. 60-some% sounds like a mandate to me. So it really doesn't make any difference how many people on opposing sides gather in these meetings and however impressive their arguments may be. The fact is, he was entrusted to make those judgments, and in his judgment, these 3 people that he has appointed to the Board of Education are the best choice for the sake of our children. So I encourage each and every one of you to support his nominees and to place these people on the board so we can restore some sense of sanity to our school system. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Rick Check, followed by Bill Wayland.
Good evening, sir. Name and address, please.
I'm Rick Check. I live at 2421 Alconbury Court. And I'm here also to speak on the support for County Executive Casserly's appointments, where he wishes to appoint to the school board. I want to appeal a little bit differently. I'm going to try to appeal to your logic for a minute, because I think what you really know, you know what's going on as far as some of the literature in there that is of highly objectionable nature. And I want you to consider this. This is literature you would never dream of giving to your own grandchildren to read. It's literature that you would have me taken out and escorted by the officers if I chose to read it here. But yet somehow we think that it's appropriate that our young youth can use it, even starting in the 7th grade. I want you to think about that logic for a minute. You know, the school board is the first line of defense for the future of our children. Adding school board members who believe in the value of a moral conscience is of a key first interest for the safety of our communities, for our future businesses, if we're having people come up and being up through the school system as good citizens. The thing that I'm concerned about is that we must consider that our youthful imaginations are not defiled with highly sexual imagery. You're all intelligent. You all know that people who spend much time in pornographic imagery become people who become serial rapists and things like that. They become a menace to the community. Yet, when you read about some of these books, such as the book All Boys Aren't Blue, in that book he talks about anal sex. This book's allowed to be read by 7th graders. Even if the book is written by a minority, I really don't care who wrote the book. I think the content is irrelevant. Well, actually, it's irrelevant for the goodness of our children. I think it should be in. I think having the right people on the school board is important. It'll help you to establish a precedent for the future, for the safety of our children and for their minds, their imaginations. You know, I would celebrate a book written by a minority that supports law enforcement, the celibate lifestyle, respect of elders, and things like that. And what I'm saying to you, I don't really care who really writes the books. You know, I remember a millionaire, multi-millionaire, got up and spoke. It was an Amway convention years ago. His name was Bill Britt. He said people become by one of two influences: who they hang around and what they read. Think about that. You know, this is a chance, and if we can do something on the school board to begin to bring some type of censorship that is for a healthy imagination of the youth for tomorrow, we should consider it. And we should walk that path. You know, another thing about removing things like history and altering our history.
Mr. Check, please bring your comments to a close.
Okay, apologize. I thought I had over a minute. I'll close right there. I think I said enough.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Good evening, sir.
Good evening. Bill Whalen, 415 Cedar Springs Road, Bel Air, Maryland. Good evening, Mr. Vincent and council members. I'm going to make 4 comments this evening. First, I support a 6-month moratorium for the county warehouse projects as proposed by the county executive. It is most certainly needed for Perryman Peninsula and Abington Woods. Second, I noted Bill 23003 for council term limits was scratched for introduction this evening. I, as I said in the past, fully support term limits and know there are pros and cons to such legislation as it would be for any new proposed legislation. However, in the case of term limits, the most important thing is for the right of all eligible voters in this county to decide in 2024 whether they're for or against term limits. In my opinion, it would be wrong for council members to not allow the eligible voters to decide. Third, the issue of power and authority of the Department of Planning and Zoning and the Board of Appeals, which is the county council, in zoning appeal cases needs to be resolved. It has become apparent zoning code sections 267 and 267-9 are ambiguous and subject to one's interpretation with a matter of authority. There are those who have taken a position that the executive branch is not obligated to enforce the final decision of the Board of Appeals, while stating it is the final decision of the county in the absence of appeal. The county is the county. There are others who take the position that the Board of Appeals does have the power and authority to enforce its final decision, especially when it's ignored by the administration and there is no appeal. I believe this authority applies especially to zoning cases when it's proven by the findings of fact and conclusions of law that the Director of Planning made an apparent error in his final determination and no court appeal is made. It should not be left to the discretion of the executive branch in that case. I have sent considerable correspondence in this matter to the current administration and also copied you, Mr. Vincetti and Mr. Kearney. To the best of my knowledge and belief, there still has been no resolution. Therefore, I believe the executive branch and legislature branch need to confer, resolve the matter, and modify the zoning code accordingly to remove that ambiguity and make it perfectly clear as to each power and authority. This will prevent future issues and unnecessary costs to taxpayers, which has occurred in the past. Finally, I want to thank Mr. Tony G. and his legislative aide, Caitlin, for sending me the results of the meeting with the Director of Planning and Zoning last week on Bel Air Village. We both agree it's a project that's further going to increase traffic congestion. We need to look at that carefully. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Tracy Lee, followed by Margie Gallagher.
Call another speaker. Oh, wait a minute, wait a minute. Why don't you step up, man? Did you sign up? Step up. Thank you, ma'am. Name and address, please.
Thank you, County Council President Vincenti and County Council members. My name is Tracy Waite, and my address is 617 Foxcroft Drive in Bel Air, Maryland. And I've submitted my comments to you in a letter, so I'm going to shorten them a little bit here for the audience. I understand that I also wanted to mention that I'm the advisory board president of the local nonprofit Harford County Climate Action. I understand that you have received a draft for a 6-month moratorium on construction of warehouses from the county executive. On behalf of our citizens and the environment, Harford County Climate Action supports this moratorium in principle, although we don't have a copy of it yet. In fact, we feel that the moratorium should continue until our zoning code can be amended to include a new category for the mega warehouses, also called freight terminals and e-commerce facilities that are planned for the BTC3 I-95 Logistics Center at Abingdon Woods and the Chesapeake Real Estate Group development at Perryman. Also, we feel that a moratorium should continue until the zoning code can be amended to prohibit this new industrial zoning category from being approved immediately next to residentially zoned properties, and vice versa. Industrial zonings mean diesel fume emissions and tractor-trailer traffic, and residential zonings mean children's lungs and bodies. The two should never be side by side. So please pass, we hope you will pass Mr. Cassily's moratorium and use that 6 months to revise Harford County zoning code to include a new freight terminal category and to prohibit mixing industrial development and residential neighborhoods. Since I have a little bit of time left, I also may just mention that although I approve strongly of Mr. Cassily's work in this moratorium and what he's doing, hopefully for Abingdon Woods and Perryman, I'm deeply troubled by the school board nominees. I am also a parent who had a child in Harford County schools, and we all, I hope, know that gay people really do exist. I have a child who is one of them, and it's not a cult, it's just a child. And when she was going to school, I wanted that school district to, be affirming and supportive and protective of her, just like all the other students. And that's why I'm concerned by some of the rhetoric that I'm hearing here tonight. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Good evening, ma'am.
Good evening. Margie Gallagher, Smallwood Drive, Abingdon. I'm here tonight to support Bob Cassily's appointments to the Board of Education. There has been opposition to his decision from the NAACP of the Harford County, claiming that these appointees do not reflect the Board of Education's mission, vision, and long-term goals. I would like to know exactly what their basis for that allegation is. What exactly is it that these appointees don't meet in the board's mission, vision, and long-term goals? Or is it that these appointees don't meet the mission, vision, and long-term goals of the NAACP? So out of curiosity, I Googled, what is the most important responsibility of a school board? And Google said, the most important responsibility of a school board is to work with their communities to improve student achievements in their local public schools. It seems that this is not the agenda of the NAACP, as it was also stated in a letter to the council that, quote, despite the appointees' professional credentials, the NAACP does not believe their ideologies best represent the whole county. This is where the hypocrisy begins. We can't even get diversity on a school board because they want the entire board to have the same ideologies as them. The board's responsibility should be to focus on excellence in academics, protecting parental rights, supporting teachers, and communicating with the community, and not pushing a woke agenda on these children. Focus should be on educating children in reading, writing, math, science, factual history, and the arts. I'm still wondering whatever happened to geography. We need to keep CRT, LGBTQ plus whatever ideologies out of the school because a board of education is not a board of indoctrination. Thank you.
Susie Scott, followed by Tanya Tayo.
Good evening, ma'am. Name and address, please.
Good evening. My name is Susie Scott. I live at 314 Street Circle in Forest Hill. Good evening, members of the County Council. As I said, I'm Susie Scott. I'm also the chapter chair of Moms for Liberty here in Harford County. Firstly, I'd like to congratulate our county executive for the exceptional candidates that he has identified to fill the appointed positions on our Board of Education. These candidates have such impressive resumes and credentials. They will be a very welcome addition to the Board of Education, and I hope that you will approve them, and I look forward to their tenure on the board. I'd also like to express my gratitude to these amazing Harford County citizens for their desire to serve the students, parents, and staff of Harford County Public Schools. They have a big task in front of them, and I just want to offer my support. I'd also like to address the misinformation that has been presented to this council with regards to my organization, Moms for Liberty, Harford County. We are moms, dads, grandparents, aunts, uncles, citizens, and we're dedicated to defending our parental rights over our children's education, their medical care, and their moral upbringing. We are the watchdogs over our school district because we know what is taught in our classrooms steers the future of Harford County and ultimately America. For far too long, our nonpartisan school board has held sway over the parents and taxpayers of this county. The teachers' union has exerted powerful influence over the board with backing from partisan political groups and special interests whose radical ideologies have been introduced into our public schools well before COVID exposed them. So it's not surprising that the education cartel that has operated with little resistance for so long is not happy to see Moms for Liberty here, and they don't want us to be present. They don't want us to speak out on ideologies and policies that are adversely affecting our children. And so they call us names, and they create false narratives about us and our motives. Well, I say God bless them. I'm glad that they are free to exercise their First Amendment rights, and we intend to do the same. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Good evening, ma'am.
Good evening. Can you hear
Could
me?
someone adjust that mic for her?
I'm a shrimp.
Barbara Mikowski.
Hi, I'm Tanya Tayo, and my address is 1341 Mary Hill Court. I wanted to thank Bob Casserly for his appointments for the Board of Education. I believe that these are all qualified choices. Our public school system and Board of Education still need a lot of help to get our schools back to normal. And our county executive said that he needs to get a handle on our school budget. The Board of Education needs to be transparent. They need to work for children, parents, teachers, and citizens. Our children missed a lot of time during COVID, and agendas were pushed before and after. These ideologies are still being pushed. These political and gender ideologies do not belong in school. I have a huge concern about my older son, this is a separate subject, who goes to Harford Tech. He's a senior this year and graduating under the computer-aided machining program. I don't know if you guys are aware, and I will be bringing this to the Board of Education, but they will not be receiving a certificate. They didn't receive a certificate last year either. The reason is that they do not have a teacher that is qualified to teach that trade. And this is like very disheartening because my son has had an A. He's a senior like the whole time during COVID and everything, and he's not gonna graduate with a certificate. I have a real problem with that, and I think you guys need to look into this. I expect this situation to get fixed, as a school should not keep offering a class that is supposed to have a certificate to go along with its graduation. Thank you.
Thank you, Dan.
Ron Stuczynski, followed by David Bauer.
Like CNC machine.
Mm. Good evening, sir. Name and address, please.
Good evening, Council. Ron Stuczynski. Good evening, Ron Stuczynski, 319 Marina Avenue, Perryman. First, I wanted to thank Aaron Penman for last week returning my call with the issue with the park and ride in Abingdon. I don't even know if that's spelled or Abingdon. And also, everyone that got back to me after I sent the picture, I guess last week, of the tractor trailer on Old Stepney Road that came apart and just blocked the road. Just the front of it, I don't know where it went, but he left the back. But I appreciate everyone getting back to me and looking into it. I was informed tonight by Mr. Voister, I believe, that we now have a tractor trailer division coming in, Mr. Gaylor, if I'm correct, or okay, that can help the state police out in some of the patrols that we have. And I appreciate that. And I also asked Mr. Gaylor, as you know, we don't have our own police force down there per se, but we have a lot of employees, et cetera, that are using our roads down there as raceways, and it's hopefully it's addressed more. I know we're all short-staffed, I get it, but hopefully it's addressed more. But I did want to bring up some of the things of trucking and the Maryland idling law, which states a motor vehicle engine may not be allowed to operate more than 5 consecutive minutes when the vehicle is not in motion. I think I bring this up because as I was coming home the other night when that tractor trailer was jackknifed, I passed a Wawa in Aberdeen when there was 11 tractor trailers parked, all of them running when I was getting gas. Clearly against our state law, but I was told by both Walmart and Wawa that because they're private property that we can't address that issue, which I don't understand, because if I have an issue of my private property, it can be addressed. So I'm hoping we can do more to just address the, I mean, it's getting worse and worse, and the pollution itself, and I know Ms. Waite touched on it. Health studies show that exposure to diesel exhaust primarily affects the respiratory system, worsens asthma, allergies, bronchitis, and lung function. And there's also evidence that diesel exhaust exposure can increase the risk of heart problems, premature death, and lung cancer. And it doesn't help that we live on the water, because it also helps keep everything in the air longer. So I just ask that council and our sheriff's department pay more attention to this with all the trucks that sit on the side of our highways and sit in these parking lots and our park and rides that clearly are posted, no trucks, no overnight parking. And then last, I think what a lot of people need to understand, Ms. Flint, you're one of them, is that we did vote for Jacob Bennett. I'm a Republican, and I want to know what was right. You have no idea what we're going through in our community, none, right? And I get it. Curtis Peel's a good guy, but he clearly sat up here and said, if you don't like what we're doing, vote us out. and that's kind of rang, to all of us. And it's nothing personal against you or the Republican committee or any, because we all get it. It's not about D's and R's sometimes. We do need to work together. And right now, I personally am pleased with what we're getting from our council. They're responsive. I know our president is happy to be able to walk in the door and talk to our executive without having problems. So I just ask that we give these people a chance. And whatever happens with Jacob, I get it. We love you. We're pulling for you. And that's all I got.
Thanks, sir. Good evening, sir. Name and address, please.
Good evening. David Bauer, 2952 Kirkwall Court, Abingdon. To begin, I have a comment on the budget. The county executive has put out a narrative that amounts to saying the previous administration was irresponsible last year, setting up a budget situation that is not sustainable.
Mr. Bauer, can you step into that microphone a little bit?
Sorry. The budget for this current fiscal year uses a lot of built-up savings to both increase spending and cut taxes. Given that, we should all expect that this year's budget proposal begins by canceling last year's tax cut. I hope this has already been part of your discussion with the administration because it is the right thing to do, but I want to make sure that fiscal responsibility is a reality here and not just a narrative being used to justify unnecessary cuts. Next topic, Board of Education nominees. And I'll be nice and vague and not name names. At the start of December, I completed a term on the Board of Education as the elected member for District B. I thus have a reasonable idea of what the job includes. And a big thing it does not include is partisan politics. I have been very happy with the 2 replacement board members who were selected by the county council during my term. By contrast, I am not happy with any of the 3 nominees proposed recently by the county executive. State law says, quote, 3 members shall be appointed by the county executive subject to the advice and consent of the county council, end quote. Did the county executive ask your advice? Did he and his office discuss the applicants with you all? I sure hope that you all didn't advise him to nominate partisan political activists, which is what he did. I request that you reject all 3 of these nominees. These are very much not the right people for the job. I would be happy to talk with any of you about this. In addition to my contact information being on the comment card, my council representative has my email address. I'm in District F now on the new map. And one last comment while I have time. It was very amusing to me to witness my lifelong Republican fellow board members being called liberal, communist, and Marxist. Thank you.
Paul Falacci, followed by Vicki Jones.
Good evening, ma'am. Name and address, please.
Hi, Vicki Jones, 30 West Bel Air Avenue, Aberdeen, Maryland. It is Black History Month, and I hope that each of you take time to learn more and celebrate the contributions Black people have made to this country and to this county. Our history is so rich. Black people were in America before we were enslaved in Africa and other countries. Black people contributed significantly to all of this country, including inventing many of our luxuries today, and even built generational wealth for many of your families. Learning about the history also includes learning the history of the NAACP. I am proud to be the president of the Harford County NAACP. I realize that for some reason, even some of you in this room believe that we are in this for the money. I think someone on Facebook said today it's all about the Benjamins. We are each our volunteers. So we are not in this for the money. We are in this for the passion and because we believe what's right and we want a better Harford County. Our members are many colors. We are Republicans, we are Democrats, and independent. We are a nonpartisan organization. At the Board of Education meeting on January 23rd, Harford County experienced an outpouring of support for equity and inclusion. This type of support has not been evident or visible during the pandemic and post-pandemic times where extreme conservative advocates have dominated the Board of Education, public comment, and this county council. Having so many folks in the room against these opposing extreme views gave potential so that we could be closer together and be closer as a county. And no matter how uncomfortable it is, many more people are here tonight in support of what's right. Through Board of Education appointments, the Harford County Executive has placed his allegiance to this minority and divisive point of view. The Board of Education appointees do not reflect the Board of Education's missions, vision, or long-term goals. Someone asked, where can you find that? It is not the NAACP's, it's with the Board of Ed, and you can ask your representative for that information. We love this county, we love being in Harford County, and we want nominees who demonstrate an allegiance to safety, a wanting for our children to be informed and taught the truth, not the real truth or the good history, and stand for inclusiveness, equity for all Harford County residents. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Did I hear you say, Mr. Falaci's, are you not speaking tonight, sir? Okay. Thank you. I appreciate that.
William Martino, followed by Janine Canito.
Good evening, sir.
Good evening. William Martino, 1207 Teaford Road. Ephesians 1 state, the Father of glory may give you the spirit of wisdom, and Proverbs tells us how much better to get wisdom than gold, to get insight rather than silver. Harford County's Board of Education desperately needs members who have wisdom. A good educational system holds the line across various ideologies and focuses on academics. I support Board of Education candidates that will advocate for the rights of parents and the citizens of Harford County. The previous board, led by Dr. Bolson, has consistently diminished the voices of parents, exposing their belief in state ownership of our children. We need a new board that understands the core mission of the educational system is to focus on academics and listen to the concerns of parents. When reading proficiencies in elementary students drops 20 to 50%, depending on the district, over the past 20 years, we have lost the focus on the core mission. The most significant drops in reading abilities have occurred in Title I schools. We have allowed the board to distract Harford County pupils with activist interest instead of concentrating on academics. The present Board of Education under Bolson regime has significantly lowered academic scores all across the county. But instead of allocating educational resources to repair the broken system, they decide on moving more funds to supporting diversity, equity, and inclusion material. How will DEI fill the future job market? How will the next generation of Harford County students support themselves? I sure don't want them living with me. Maybe Dr. Bolson, Carol Mueller, Wade Sewell, and Carol Bruce will let them live in their basement. The educational system is heading in the wrong direction, and the present leadership wants to continue on that path. We need new leadership. Please approve the county executive's recommendation to fill the school board positions and return the educational system back to academics. If these candidates are approved, I will be at the Board of Educational meetings, and if they don't support parents' rights, they will certainly hear from me. Thank you tonight.
Good evening.
Good evening, ma'am. Name and address, please.
Janine Canito, 305 Duffy Court, Forest Hill. I moved to Harford County in 2006, and I was struck by how family-oriented it was and its core values that reflected that. But there has been a major shift. I watched the Board of Education meeting live and had intended to make some comments about the presence of the NAACP, but I'm going to kind of switch gears based on what I've heard many of the speakers talk about. I'll be honest and say that the issue of racism for some years now has been a distraction for the real issue. And I think the real issue is the sexualization of our children. Pornography has absolutely no place in our schools, whether it's in cartoon form or otherwise. I'm embarrassed by some of the books that are in our schools, and you should be too. As a psychiatric nurse practitioner who's been treating children and adolescents for almost 40 years, kids who have been over-sexualized, we are playing with fire here. There is no good reason why a 7th grader needs to be taught about blowjobs and anal sex. There is absolutely no reason for it. If you can come up with one, I'd be glad to hear it. You know, I've been attending your meetings for some time now, and I don't know how y'all stay awake and alert through most of them, quite frankly. I know zoning and fire hydrants are important, but they are still very fundamentally boring to listen to. And I don't know if the content of those meetings have led to complacency or you have been blinded by the very over-white smile of our former county executive. But we intend to hold you accountable. You are our county legislation. You are effectively our Congress. And we need you to act as such and to reflect the values of Harford County. I don't need to point out how many mama bears are in this room, but there will be no more putting heads in the sand and avoiding this topic. We are not in Kansas anymore, and I really encourage you to embrace your role in what we're seeing now. It has to stop. That's all. Thanks.
Our last two speakers this evening, Delane Lewis, followed by Daniel Flannery. Sorry.
Good evening, ma'am.
Thank you. My name is Delane Lewis, 2714 Pemberton Ridge, Baldwin, Maryland. First of all, I'm very glad, Mr. Penman, that you returned his call. He's not your constituent. I'm your constituent. I've emailed you twice, and I haven't heard. And it's not about any of these topics I'm going to discuss. So please let me know the best way to communicate with you, because I would like to have a discussion about some other topics, not just the ones I'm discussing tonight. I would just like to point out that our system of government that allows our community executive to hide from his constituents, and we could change that, you know, we don't have to accept that. I think a county executive should have to attend meetings and hear from the public. The county executive out of the box sought to undo the will of the people by wasting our tax dollars in the pursuit of denying Councilman Bennett his job. He has already begun signaling that he will not be funding education, and somehow that feels like a threat. Reverend Dr. Tillman said it best at the last Board of Education meeting: you judge a society by how they value and prioritize their children. That would include how we fund public education. The county executive has now appointed 3 people, 2 of whom have clear and obvious political agendas, in the face of when we really need to be having nonpartisan members who will focus on what is the best interests of children and teachers. I will remind you that children have civil rights also, and the agenda of some groups attempt to ignore that. They run around with their hair on fire, creating imaginary issues where there are none. We understand the power of repeating something often enough that it takes on a false legitimacy. Their fear is demonizing our children and harming them. It is sickening to watch. They are obsessively focused. They are the ones who are obsessively focusing and talking about sex. My concern about the Board of Education appointments is that they have agendas that will cause actual harm to the children and employees of Harford County Public Schools. If that is the case, I hope that there are sufficient funds budgeted for outside counsel, because if their civil rights are violated, there will be lawsuits. People talk about a mandate. I want to remind you that 7 people ran for Board of Education that would fall into this hair on fire category, and 5 of them lost, because this anti-child rhetoric is ugly, and most citizens and voters do not support it.
Thank you, ma'am.
Good evening.
Good evening, sir.
My name is Daniel Flannery. I reside at 2323 Schuster Road, Jarrettsville, 21084. Since I'm the last guy to be up here, I'm going to make my comments brief and to the point. I want to congratulate Bob Castley on the 3 candidates he is recommending to this council. I urge our council to confirm these appointments. This Board of Education needs a balance. It's been far too long that this Board of Education has gone along with a left agenda by specialty groups. They have special interests, and they have approved things pretty much carte blanche. I urge for you to appoint these 3. I think that it would add the perfect balance to this, to the arguments and the various issues that come up before this Board of Education. We need to support our children in education, not indoctrinate them. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Any others, Ms. Dixon?
There are no more speakers, Mr. President.
Thank you. If I may, we'll go to business from council members. Mr. Bennett?
Thank you, Council President. I'll keep all the events and things going on in my district to a Facebook post tomorrow. So first, I just want to wish everybody a happy Black History Month. It's a great time to learn a bit about our history, both locally, nationally, and globally, and get a greater grasp on our history. This past weekend, I was able to attend a fantastic event at the Havre de Grace Opera House, the Langston Hughes Youth Oratorical Contest, and I was just awestruck by the children and their performance and their skill and their talent. At the beginning of the event, there was a quote shared by Mr. Clayton C. Stansberry, who's the former president of the Colored PTA of Harford County. He said, "No progressive community can remain part literate and part illiterate. Ignorance is a menace to any people and should not be tolerated. Some have said it would cost the community too much money to educate all our children. I reply to that statement, we wish to say that education will never cost this community or any other community what ignorance will if the latter is permitted to prevail. Let's all join hands in helping to make this county one of the best counties, not only in the state of Maryland, but in the entire United States, by giving our children the best education obtainable." I thought that was a beautiful, wonderful quote. So much so I reached out to the organizers of the event so I could actually get a copy of it because I couldn't find it online. And I couldn't agree more. You know, just as a point of personal privilege, for those of you who don't know me beyond my name and the fact that I sit here every week and that I'm a school teacher, I'm a third-generation Harford County resident, Eagle Scout from Troop 777, all those things. But I'm also the son of an abusive alcoholic. I went through tremendous trauma and abuse in my home growing up at the hands of my mother, who struggled with mental illness and addiction. If it hadn't been for my school teachers and my principal at Ring Factory Elementary School, there's no way I'm here today. I owe everything to those people who snuck me food in the morning because they knew lunch was my only meal of the day, who would bring me a gift on my birthday, and you know, Mr. Cooper, who when I got into the geography B final, thanks to my survivor knowledge, if I'm honest with myself, who sat with me in his office to help me study because he knew I wouldn't have anyone to work with me at home. Their impact on me was so great that when I was driving home on the school bus on the last day of 5th grade, I promised myself that I would be for children what they had been for me. That's why I was always the den chief for Troop 777, working with our Cub Scouts to help them transition into Boy Scouting. That's why I was the program director at Broad Creek, serving our Cub and Boy Scouts. That's why I ran a mentoring program for children in public housing and children who are unhoused in Salisbury. And that's why when my two boys, David and Bryden, suddenly became homeless and I was 21 years old, I took on emergency educational custody. And even though I was a school teacher who had very little money, I spent every dollar of savings I had to take care of those children so that they would be okay. My commitment is to taking care of children. All that I do is about that. So I just want to talk a little bit about my perspective and my lens as we look at these Board of Education appointments and the budget. I just want to clarify that I've reached out to the Carroll County, Frederick County, and Anne Arundel County attorneys, you know, in Carroll County, Dennis Frazier, a PE teacher, served on the county commissioners. Frederick County, Jessica Fitzwater, a music teacher, served on the county council. Anne Arundel County, Lisa Rodvine currently serves on the county council. And I was able to get their ethics board's opinions on whether or not those council members could vote on Board of Ed appointments and on the budget. And in all those counties where school teachers have served, their Board of Ethics said there was no conflict of interest, that they were allowed to vote. You know, Dennis was a Republican, Jessica, Lisa were Democrats, all of them school teachers who were allowed to vote on the budget, allowed to vote on Board of Ed appointments. So I plan on following the advice of those ethics committees who've laid out a clear pathway in the state of Maryland on this issue. So that being said, as I prepare for these votes, here's my process. As I promised on the campaign trail, I'm going to be talking with all the candidates, listening to every constituent's thought that is shared. I'm going to sit down with the leadership of the NAACP, of the Caucus of African American Leaders, with our local education association, and getting a full picture of what's ahead of us before I vote, because it's important that we have a clear picture ahead of what we're voting on. This is about our kids. As far as the budget goes, my process is going to be very similar. I'm going to make sure that I have all community input, all community voices. And then lastly, I just want to make sure it's abundantly clear that I support children, not systems. When systems are in the way of supporting children, I move those systems. You know, it's not about blind support of the Board of Education, of Dr. Bolson, or of my career. It's about supporting children. So when I see things that are in the way of that, I will address them. You know, an example somebody brought up tonight is the Lucy Calkins units of study. I have been a strong advocate that our county needs to get rid of curriculum that's been called a human rights violation by the Ontario Human Rights Commission, that has gotten the state of California sued, Detroit, Michigan sued, that's illegal in half the states in the United States to use, and has been shown to harm our children's ability to learn how to read. There's a reason that last year as a kindergarten teacher, I read chapter books at the end of the year, and this year as a 6th grade teacher, I'm teaching a boy how to read CVC words, 3-letter words, on my lunch break. And it's because large swaths of our population have been denied the human right of being taught how to read. So any sort of implication from the public that I'm a blind supporter of schools or out for selfish interests is just a denial of my story, a denial of my history, and I'm not very tolerable of that. I am here for children. That's all that I do, all that I live by. And I just want to make sure that the public is clear on that. And I hope I'm not a disgrace to the students I serve every day.
Ms. Sottles.
Thank you, Council President. Evamar is a community located in District E, and there's been a lot of questions about it. There is going to be an input meeting on the next phase of the project. It's scheduled for February 27th at 6 p.m. at St. Matthew's Lutheran Church. I encourage the community members to attend this meeting. I've received questions about it, and I'm researching it closely and trying to find out if the proposed next phase is properly using the NRD bump up. And I have significant concerns about this bump up and will assure that the zoning code is correctly applied. As far as term limits go, I strongly support that legislation. I'm hopeful that we can come to a reasonable compromise, and I look forward to having this introduced in the next few weeks. Thank you. Have a good night.
Thank you, Ms. Sottles. Mr. Riley?
Yes, I had about 30 events that I attended in reference to my constituents in District D, but for lack of time, I'm not going to go through all of them, but I'll just hit a couple highlights. First off, I see the sheriff here this evening, and I was privileged enough to get the sheriff's salute. And Sheriff, I thank you for that, for the 20 years that I served as the clerk of the court here in Harford County. I also had the privilege of taking the Rec and Park tour with the the Deputy Director, Terry Hanley. And I tell you, we really have a gem in this county when it comes to parks and recs. I hope that folks take part in a lot of things that go on. It's really a quality of life issue that we have here. Eden Mill is like a gem that we have. If you haven't been there, I'd appreciate if you get out there. And I want to thank the County Council for approving my People's Council choice, Joe Norman. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Mr. Riley. Mr. Giangiordano.
Thank you, Council President. Just to maybe clarify that half of our budget goes to the school. The last 2 years, we've overfunded the school. There's maintenance of effort, which means we cannot fund the school less than we funded them before. So any talk about underfunding the school is not a possibility. It's maintenance of effort. It's half of our budget. So part of that is last year when the school was in here, one of the issues I brought up was that students were going to have to pay to play sports. After 2 years of overfunding, I thought that was unacceptable. I made it known that every student who wanted to play a sport should be paid for by the school that was overfunded instead of them coming out of $100 out of their pocket. I expect that to be in the budget. This year, after giving out a donation from the group that I'm in to the Bel Air Boosters band, I was informed that their budget was cut from 10 grand to 5 grand for uniforms. Now, school board, overfunded. Last 2 years, you cut the budget to 5 grand. I expect that budget to be back over 10 grand, and I will address that issue for that. and I will make sure that the school board knows. I've already let somebody know, Carol Mueller, that's in my district, about that, and I'll let her know again. But I am very adamant, just as I was about sports, that I'm going to be about the boosters, that they were overfunded. If they've got to cut some of the not teachers, I take it back, administrator salaries that are 175 or so, then maybe they need to look at that to cut that. I was blessed. I went to Bel Air High School. I moved here. I had great teachers. They taught the basics. They taught you math. They taught you English. They taught you geography, history. Everything that I use today, there was no agenda. You know, I played sports. I played every sport I possibly could play. But nobody forced us into doing anything. I don't know what the schools are like now, but I hear from parents all the time, and that they're not happy about things are going. I get teachers that talk to me all the time because they know that I'll listen to them. They can't say that to anybody else. A lot of them are in the unions because they have to be, that protects them legally. If they didn't have to be, a lot of them wouldn't be. There is other options that I've pointed out to them that they can do. So I'm just, I hope that we can come to an agreement with the school that, you know, they are going to be funded. They're not going to be underfunded. They get half of our budget as it is. We don't control what they do after they get our money, unfortunately. Council President, that's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Penman.
Thank you, Mr. President. Since we haven't had a meeting in a few weeks, I'm going to be a little long. There's been a lot of topics that have come up over the last 2 weeks. The first, I want to thank County Executive Castley for his nominations for the Harford County School Board appointments, Aaron Poynton, Lauren Strauss, and Teresa Kocher. Having met 2 out of the 3 in the past, I'm extremely impressed with the resumes and the leadership backgrounds of each of the candidates. I look forward to having further discussion with each of the nominations and hopefully confirming the appointments to allow them to use their talents to serve the Board of Education and the students enrolled in the Harford County Public Schools. My second talking point is to express my displeasure with the proposed legislation to enact a moratorium on development for warehousing, wholesaling, processing, distribution, and local delivery facilities on property zoned village business, B3, commercial industry, light industrial, and general industrial. It should be noted that a similar bill was introduced and vetoed last year because of liability ramifications both legally and financially to the Harford County by enacting such legislation. At a time when a balanced economic growth is extremely important to sustain our local economy, this proposed moratorium stands in stark contrast of any notion to attract business to Harford County. Why would any successful business be attracted here if they can't trust Harford County won't change the rules? The rules have been already established through predetermined development envelope, zoning code, which is routinely assessed through comprehensive rezoning, and the evaluation of the Harford County Master Plan, which was done in 2016 and scheduled to be done within this term. It is my firm belief that we would be better served filling the newly enacted position of Economic Director, and attracting the best suited business for our community to overcome any potential of a structural deficit in our future. In addition, I do welcome the idea of a study to assess the positive or negative impact of warehouses in our community and provide further information to evaluate during rezoning. But what I cannot support is legislation that infringes on property rights and potentially results in Harford County being sued, subsequently costing taxpayer dollars. I am no lawyer, but I believe that business and property owners would have an argument that their Fifth Amendment right was violated for unlawful taking of private property without compensation. Next, I would like to thank the county executive for holding the budget town halls during the last week of January. Many community members spoke or submitted comments or questions to be considered while developing the next year's budget. I was thoroughly impressed by the attendance and shown support for the Harford County Public Library, as well as the Harford County Sheriff's Office. At the Jarrettsville Town Hall, what I thought was unique was the exclusive budget charts on display for the Harford County Sheriff's Office budget. The charts portrayed the commitment that Harford County has made to our community's safety and combat the negative impact that Annapolis and society has on our law enforcement. Also encouraging on the Harford County Sheriff's Office capital project budget chart was the funding of the Central Precinct and Training Center for FY 2023. Now that the graph, which I have here, not the greatest photo, but it's here. Now that the graph has been provided and displayed to the public during a town hall depicting and noting the allocating funding, I am hopeful the project will now move forward. I want to thank County Executive Castley for the continued conversation and the presentation and his commitment to public safety. On January 31st, I had the honor of participating in a Mental Health and Addiction Advisory Council. The meeting provided a wealth of information and update to county stakeholders. One encouraging point covered during this meeting was by the Office of Drug Control Policy that indicated Harford County has received $800,533 in funding from the National Opioid Settlement Process. I understand the funds are regulated by state guidelines, but I have having a working knowledge of drug outreach and education, I'm excited to see what these fundings can do for our community to provide education and resources for those in or seeking recovery. There are a couple upcoming legislative initiatives that we'll be working on. I've been pleased to work with my colleague Councilman Gina Giordano, in the Harford County Sheriff's Office in the county to craft legislation to change the code pertaining to the establishment and enforcement of fire lanes. As these things progress, we will be able to provide updates. In relation to term limits, as we have talked many times during the last few weeks, I continue to have ongoing conversations with council members to develop term limit legislation. As a local legislator, I would absolutely like to utilize the legislative process to accomplish this significant change. However, if myself and Councilwoman Sottles are unable to accomplish it here, we will make sure to begin the process of accomplishing term limits through referendum and signature petition to allow voters to decide if they want term limits. The last thing, the Council B office has received a request to change the county code as it pertains to allowance of chickens on residential lots smaller than 2 acres. My legislative aide, Jessica Blake, who was here tonight, thank you, Jessica, and I have begun researching the possibility of doing so and the regulations that would need to be changed to allow such chickens. For more information in the coming weeks. And that's all I have.
Thank you, Mr. Penman. Mr. Guthrie.
It's good to end up talking about chickens. I don't know if it's got any roosters involved in that, but
you don't need it to have an egg, though.
That's right. I don't need them in my backyard. I have enough noise with lots of birds. Anyway, I wanted to comment on something Ms. Boyle said because I agree with her. I'm glad she brought it up, and maybe we need to talk back in chambers. But this NRD, this Natural Resources Development issue that was put in by David Craig on top of a bill when I was on the council before in 2002 to 2014, I was upset because you have R1 development. R1 development is supposed to be for single-family homes. Well, there was times where they could massage that and put in townhomes in with single-family homes, which now people make investment in single-family homes, and then all of a sudden across the street they see townhomes. That affects their value of their home. There's no question. So I developed the bill, and I'm going to redo it, and I'll talk to Ms. Bowles about it, because we need to get rid of the NRD. That's a false narrative in our building code. Okay, what it does, it allows a builder to build townhomes in an R1 district. And I'm sure that most of you have probably seen it, but right there on 152 and 40, where the chicken places, your chickens, where that chicken restaurant or carryout is, right behind that, if you saw that land, plowed, as far as you can see. And what they did there, what they've done there, is that it's R1. The whole thing's R1, okay? And if you max it out, it'll build about 300 homes, single family, supposedly. But somehow they call it an NRD district. And if you read the 3-page document about the description of NRD, after you read it, you don't know what the hell you read in the first place because it's so convoluted. Then a builder can build anything any way he wants to do that. But what happens in the R1 district, where it has an NLRD and they can stick it in there, they have an option to add townhomes anywhere from 30 to 50% of the project. So what they've done in this project on 152 is that got that NLRD in there, and we got it. I'm going to put in a bill. I'll talk to Ms. Bull, maybe she'll join me to get rid of that and have R1 for one thing, single-family homes. We deserve that in this county. There are 3 other residential codes. There's R2, there's R3, there's R4. They are all for townhouses. The bigger the number, the more townhouses you can build within an acre of land. But somebody and we're having problems right there with that area, because even there's a sign out there, which I'm upset about, because the sign says single-family homes. Well, that's BS, because what they're doing is supposed to be 300 single-family homes. They're going to build 200, because then they pump up the NRD, they get 30% put in there, and now they're going to build 188 townhomes in there. So now the number goes from 300 to 388, okay? So they can squeeze it in, where they can only supposed to be able to build 300. I can't do anything about that project because Craig put an amendment into my bill while I was gone, and stuck this NRD in there. So, and what happens? Just do the math, because the county figures, or we figure that for every house built, it's about 2.5 cars, okay, per house. So you build 300 single-family homes, you got about 600 or so cars, okay? You pump it up to that 388, what do you got? You got 1,000. You got 1,000 right there in a district where you can't have any more highways, no more roads, no more openings, except right there on 152, which is already crowded as hell, or you back them out on Trimble Road. Now, all the people that build them beautiful houses across the street from Magnolia Elementary, see that area in there? When I was on the council, when we did comprehensive rezoning, they came to the council and they wanted to change that zoning from R1 to R3. Well, we denied it. So they had to build all single family. That's all them nice, good-looking single-family homes across it. Well, guess what? On the back of that now is this development, okay? Where now these people are upset because they're going to build, 188 townhomes back there on top of the other. I think I said that wrong. It's 200 individual homes and 188 single-family homes. So just do the math. So I'm going to work on a bill, and I'm glad Ms. Bull, I'm glad she brought that up, that we're going to put in a bill that R1, under any circumstances, working with Charlie on this, so we've been working on it, any one bill that says R1, you can only build single-family homes, period. You can't build anything else there. So I mean to get off on that, but I'm glad Ms. Bull brought it up. Well, now I'm trying to get with the stuff I was talking about. I'm the last guy, so everybody's mad. They want to go home. I want to compliment the Sheriff's Office and American Red Cross, because they're going to have a blood drive on this Friday, February the 10th, at the American Legion Hall in Edgewood at Post 17. It's at 415 Edgewood Road. If you go right down Edgewood Road, you can't miss it. Place Willoughby Beach, and it's on the left-hand side. That's the American Legion Hall. That's from 12:30 to 6 o'clock on Friday, February the 10th, and you can. But they want you to make an appointment, so you can call 800-733-2767 before you go. To make it easier, it's 800 Red Cross, same thing. So you can call them and you can make an appointment. I got an appointment at 12:30. So anybody wants to see it, I'll be there. On Monday, January 30th, I toured the Pyramid Healthcare Center, which is, by the way, I didn't know it had changed over, but it did it in 2020, which I can't believe it. But if you know where that motel is, it sits back off the road, right there where the lake is, right there on that same area, 152 and Route 40. That motel sitting back there, that's now become a rehab center. And the people who invited me over, and Colin Rozier, Dominic Barone, Adam Hilton and Drew Wallace all took me for a tour of the whole place. And I was really impressed because I did look over there and you could see a whole bunch, not a whole bunch, but some new buildings over on the far left. Well, they took me over and took me a tour through it. There's probably about 70 or 80 people in there right now, and you would never know it. The place is super clean. I couldn't believe how clean it was, and I couldn't believe how, of course, it works out great because it used to be a motel. So now they have all these rooms that they can put these people who are having drug and alcoholic problems, and they can rehab them and turn them back into the community. Also, this whole thing with Perryman and all, I had a call from Cheryl Davis Cole, and she asked me to take a tour of Perryman, and I did on Friday the 20th. We spent about 2 hours, and Cheryl Davis Cole and Paul Fallance took me for a tour, and we spent about 2 hours driving through the whole area. I don't know how this thing's going to end up in the end. I don't know whether a moratorium is good or not, but we're certainly going to need more time to study it. It's amazing when you go back there and you tour that whole facility. You get back in there, I mean, there's probably 1,000 homes back there. Maybe I don't think I'm exaggerating, but I went there, saw them all. I mean, they have homes from Section 8 to individual homes to modular homes to $1 million homes on the water. I mean, it's everything. It's all over the place, and they only got one way in, one way out, you know. And then that fellow said he sent me a picture of that truck that lost its load or something, and it was crossways across the road at nighttime. I don't know how anybody got in and out of there, or how long it took them to move that damn truck, but it's a mess. Okay. Also on the 23rd, I met with Marcy Austin, health officer for Harford County. Me and Jim Raleigh met with her and to go over all the new things she's doing, and Jim was there, so he's an eyewitness. She complimented me on all the help that I gave him when I was on the council before, because we were able to get a dental clinic in that shopping center there, right on Hanson Road and Edgewood Road, and it's grown over the years. It's still there. They expanded it. They doubled twice as what it was when I helped them put that there in the first place, and they're serving about 4,000 people a year. And she told me that they should name it after me, but I said, don't do that. Am I right, Jim? Wake up. Let me see so we can get out of this place.
Councilman, you forgot my conversation, didn't you?
No, that's right here. I got it. That's my.
No, my last conversation.
That's. I think somebody else is beating me. It's on the far end. He's doing a good job. I did the health care. I went and interviewed and had an opportunity to meet the new principal at Joppatown High School on January 31st. And she told me to make sure that I say something in regards to the JROTC program that they're having at Joppatown. And there's only one more time to be able to sign up for it, and that's February the 10th. And those applications all over the county, anybody can go to it. And the close for applications is February the 10th. That's for the ROTC program.
And finally?
Well, you see, it took so long because we had. I have two more quickies.
No, just do the last one.
Well, I got to take those because I was invited by the Adjutant General of the state of Maryland, Timothy Cohen, along with Bob Casserly, and we were at the deployment ceremony at the Aberdeen Proving Grounds, and there was about 80 of our soldiers headed to Kuwait, and they had a big ceremony there. And so myself and Bob had the opportunity to go there, and we met the governor was there. The three of us were in the waiting room and had a big opportunity to talk and get some of our views over. So we outnumbered Bob, because it was 2 Democrats to a Republican. Anyway, finally.
Thank you.
And you're going to appreciate this because you were at this meeting, okay? We had a very important meeting. That's why I got to bring it up. With this copper mine sports facility in Edgewood, I've been concerned with it because when I left the office, when I left this office over 8 years ago, this was all on the table, and I don't know what happened to it, but for the last 8 years, it didn't go anywhere. So what I've done is reading their webpage and everything, trying to get it resurfaced and get it off. I had help from President Vicente. We had a meeting in his office. We had myself and Terry Hanley and the director of Parks and Recs, along with Alex Jacobs. He's the head of the copper mine program. And the reason I called the meeting, and Pat put it together for me, is that we had some, when you go on their webpage, there's some misinformation on their webpage because what they told us, and when they had a council meeting here, in this council meeting on February 2021, he was here testifying before the previous council that when this was going to happen, that it was going to be 8 fields and all turf fields, lights all lit up and everything, and that they were supposed to let some of the people the kids in the neighborhood use the fields at certain times. And then you go on their webpage and it says, oh, they can use it certain times, but they're going to have to pay. Well, that's a lot of crap. That isn't what he said. And what we did, and I had Debbie, my legislative aide, with me. We had a laptop with us, and we had his speech he gave right here in 2021 in February, and so we played it and showed him exactly what he said. And what he said was that between 3 and 5 o'clock in the afternoon, Monday through Friday, that the kids can use the fields because they are not going to need them. And I said, there will be no charge, correct? And Pat can tell you, he was sitting at the meeting, and he said, yes, there will be no charge. So I got to give him to correct that webpage because it says in the webpage you got to pay. I'm sorry, Mr. President, but I'm done.
Come on, Dion, one more thing.
Well, I'd say something.
No, you're done, remember?
I don't want Tony to be embarrassed, so I ain't going to let embarrass Tony.
All joking aside, you can tell that when I say council members are out and about every day, all across this county, it's true. And real brief tonight, just in closing, a couple of things that I do believe are important to mention. Most of the council members attended the open house at the ARC Northern Chesapeake region to get an idea of exactly the great work that they do for people with differing abilities. And we appreciate that very much. I also attended the Jarrettsville Volunteer Fire Company banquet, and as a part of the event, they honored 4 of their members for 50 years of service. And when we talk about the value and the commitment and dedication that our volunteers have, that speaks volumes. And that's just not one company. They're all across the county. The other thing I want to talk about briefly is, in the past, prior council, getting answers and input from directors and deputies was extremely difficult. The one thing that I really commend County Executive Castley on is his openness, his transparency, the ability to have us attend meetings on a regular basis. I meet with him at least once a week, maybe more. He's opened up his cabinet meetings to myself for, I think, every other week or something like that we go to get an update. And it's like run like a military organization. I mean, there's times for each cabinet member to give input, and if it doesn't rise to the executive level, he makes a move on. So I appreciate having that opportunity, that access, and I'm sure my council colleagues do as well. The last thing for the evening is that Jeannie and I want to express our deepest condolences to the Kalenda family and friends due to the unfortunate passing of their daughter, Jen, their daughter-in-law, Jen, who passed at home at the age of 50. Jen was employed as a program coordinator by the Harford County Sheriff's Office, a detention center, working with inmates to ensure a positive reentry into our community. She is survived by her husband, John, son, Rodney, and our dear friends, Sarah and Alan Kalenda. Services are scheduled for Friday, February the 10th at Patterson Funeral Home, I believe. Is that not right, Major? Correct. We ask that you keep the Kalenda and Dennett families and friends in your thoughts and prayers. And with that, this meeting will be adjourned. Thank you.